Good evening, everyone. Let's get started. I would like to call to order the May 6, 2025 regular meeting of the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission to order at 7 p.m. Please silence your electronic devices. Staff, would you please call the roll?
Chair Buckingham.
Here.
Commissioner Frostein.
Here.
Commissioner Gherkin.
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan.
Here.
Commissioners Burchett, Leone, and Modi are absent.
With 4 members present, I declare a quorum. 4 are required. Is that correct?
That's
Staff?
correct.
Great. So we're legal. Now on to the approval of the minutes of the prior 2 meetings. First being the meeting dated March 4th, 2025. Are there any comments, corrections, or discussion items from the commission for those minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion then to approve the minutes of the March 4th, 2025 regular meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, March 24th, 2025.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the minutes of the March 4th, 2025 meeting are so approved. Now on to the approval of the minutes of the immediately prior meeting dated April 2nd, 2025. Any comments, correction items, or matters to discuss from the commission? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes dated April 2nd, 2025?
I'll motion to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the minutes of the April 2nd, 2025 meeting are so approved. Now on to tonight's matters. We have 2 items of pending business and 2 items of new business. The 2 items of pending business relate to the ongoing matters related to the city's consideration of the Kirchhoff Road study and related zoning changes. And so before we get into the substance of any of these, can I ask, I see several people in the audience, by a show of hands, how many are here for the Kirchhoff Road matters, and how many are here for the hookah lounge and the subdivision matters? So first of all, who's here for Kirchhoff Road?
Well, I'm here for everything, so.
That's a given. So you're down for both. Thank you. So everybody here, is it fair to say, is here related to the new matters, not the Kirchhoff Road specifically? Okay, great. That being the case, I think it makes perfect sense to hear the new matters first, if staff agrees, just to keep things moving, or would you recommend a different order?
Yes, we agree on taking, or we suggest you should take items 3 and 4 out of order. It would be proper to do that by motion.
Great. By motion to take them out of order.
Correct.
Can I have a motion to take out of order and hear the 2 new matters, matters 3 and 4, before pending matters 1 and 2? Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to change the agenda to hear matters 3 and 4 first, and then 1 and 2 will be after those 2 matters.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion to reorder the agenda items tonight to handle the new matters 3 and 4 first, is so approved. So turning now to the first matter 3, that would be the consideration of a plat of subdivision consolidation for the properties at 5521 Meadowbrook Court and 5550 Meadowbrook Court, ATS Sortimat USA LLC applicant. Staff, is the file in order and has proper notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in this matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
I'll make a motion to enter or to open the public hearing for the consideration of a plat of subdivision consolidation for the properties at 5521 and 5550 Meadowbrook Court, and place the file into the record.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes. Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in this matter is now open. And I would call upon the petitioner to step forward to the podium. And we're recording everything, and so we would ask you to speak clearly into the microphone. And before you get started, just for everyone's benefit, we're volunteers here. We are hearing any matters coming before the cities related to the zoning code and the planning documents. What we do tonight is just make recommendations to the city council, so everyone's clear. We take testimony, we create a record, we hear from the city, we hear from petitioners, the property owners, and then we make a recommendation which will be reviewed by city council. It's either, it's not binding what we do, what the city council does is binding. They can agree or disagree or send it back for further consideration. So with that being said, could you please raise your right hand, sir?
So you want everybody to that might.
Yeah, if anyone else is going to potentially come forward, maybe we could swear everyone in at once.
Just in case.
Yeah, guys, you want to step up?
Never know.
And then we'll just, if you are testifying, then we'll ask you to come forward and state your name and spell your name. But we'll just do you first, sir, for that latter piece. Okay, please raise your right hand, everybody. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. That's the question.
Everyone acknowledging in the affirmative. Thank you. Guys, you may be seated. And then, sir, please state your name,
Will do.
spell your first name and last name, and provide your business address, please.
Great. John Swerk, John Swierk. I am president with DDCA Architects, 3321 South State Route 31, Crystal Lake, Illinois, 60012.
And what is your relationship to the petitioner tonight?
We're part of the design team that's putting together the plat before you,
Sure.
as well as future phases as we go forward.
Got it. And so we've got the packet tonight that was prepared by staff and that contains your materials as well. We're familiar with the matter, but now is your opportunity to either provide a summary or to provide any additional elaboration that you see fit. Then we'll have a chance to ask questions, and then we'll do the same with staff.
Yeah, we've worked very closely with the staff. They've been great. I think your packet's pretty thorough for this plat of consolidation, basically taking the 2 existing plats of survey. One of the existing facility that has the manufacturing plant and offices, along with the vacant property adjacent to this, to consolidate in 1 lot, basically to provide a future addition to the building and a parking lot, along with related stormwater retention requirements per city guidelines and MWRD. We've submitted preliminary engineering plans and had no comments back from that standpoint. But again, this is pretty basic at this point. We're just asking for the consolidation of the 2 lots. Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions, we're definitely here to answer.
Thank you. Any questions from commission?
So the consolidation of the 2 lots, which is now separate, makes it 1 lot, so for future development of whatever project that they're currently looking at.
Correct, and I believe in your packet, there is a proposed site plan that shows the parking lot and the future expansion and the stormwater detention
So
areas.
how large would the building be?
It's about 45,000 square feet,
And that would just be like an empty building? Is that the thing?
No, it'll be part of the existing, an expansion of the existing manufacturing
Okay.
with warehousing and, I forget what they call it, light industrial.
So there's gonna be like docks and access for trucks then too, correct?
On this portion, we have one overhead door opening,
Okay.
and no docks.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions? Is there any timeline on the development of the second parcel, or is that just kind of a TBD?
No,
We'll get
it's
to it later.
really, we want to flow right into it, so it's as soon as possible,
Oh.
I believe. Yep.
So this is definitely an actionable plan. As soon as we get the
Yeah, so
plat
we
taken
go-
care
we
of,
hope to
then
go
you'll
right
move
into
forward.
final engineering and get into construction documents.
Okay.
also.
Maybe this is more for staff, but I don't know if there's any other special approvals that would be needed when we get to that stage, but maybe that's for a later date. But we can ask the city in a minute. Any questions?
No,
Commissioner Sheehan?
for a plan of consolidation is very well put together,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We
Thank you.
may have additional questions. If so, we'll let you know.
Right, thank you.
Great. Staff, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. As you can see, and as the applicant has testified, this is a 2-lot to 1-lot re-subdivision that's intended to allow them to continue to expand, first, the parking, and we hope they'll choose to expand their facilities here in Rolling Meadows for their existing site. Some of the history is before my time with the city, but I believe ATS acquired Sortamat years back. Currently, their facility there is dedicated to, ATS is an international company. They're headquartered in Canada. They have significant facilities in Ohio. Here at their facilities in Chicago, they're doing life sciences manufacturing work, so putting together equipment that manufactures things like, when I did the tour, it was IV kits, for example, so things that are used in pharmaceuticals in the medical field. What they're proposing to do, and again, this is just in concept, this year we believe will be used to consolidate, as we talked about, to build out the additional parking that will serve their facility. And then in future years, we hope that ATS will choose to expand here in Rolling Meadows. Potentially the footprint of that addition is what they're looking at doing. As you can see, the site plan is still conceptual. By approving the plat, you don't approve the site plan. I just want to be articulate about that. There are a couple things we're still working out with the design team, just as far as where exactly parking is located. You can see that parking gets very close to our right-of-way in the cul-de-sac at the north. These are simple things we anticipate working out. Potentially at a future date, to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, you may see this item again either to approve a variance for the parking location to be within setbacks, just because having so much of that cul-de-sac is a bit of an unusual condition. Also, potentially this site received a parking variation the first time around, and potentially for building this addition, even with those additional parking spaces, it would still be below the city's ratio for parking. Again, those issues aren't before you tonight. They could design around them if necessary. We can discuss them at a future time, but we think certainly the plat in front of you meets all the city's requirements. We recommend its approval. As we keep working through these, I'm sure that we'll be able to come to a good outcome.
Any other questions? The packet refers to certain objective standards in the city code that would be required for approval. These aren't anything specific to the zoning code or anything that we need to do as the commission. But could you just speak to that a little bit more? What do those entail? And it sounds like staff is comfortable that everything is in compliance with those, I guess, the subdivision regulations and then some other related zoning regulations.
Yeah, so
right?
that's
Yeah.
correct. So when this matter comes before you, subdivisions are unlike many of the other public hearings you conduct. There's some shades of gray here, but they're generally fairly objective. In other cases, you conduct a hearing to reach findings about subjective standards or standards that may not boil down to measurements. In the subdivision regulations, it's generally driven by measurements. So the subdivision regulations are made really for taking a big block of land and dividing it up. How do we build streets and sidewalks and sewers and water supply and street lighting and parks and schools and all the things that have to service the division of tracts, just because in state law that's what it's built for. And that matters here too when we're breaking down tracts. And there is a little bit of the zoning regulations involved. When you subdivide a lot, it's supposed to meet the lot requirements of zoning. So that's not necessarily how it'll be improved, but it needs to be, unless it receives a variation, it needs to be of a certain area, of a certain frontage. In some cases, there may be recommendations about the shapes of lots or blocks. When you're going from 2 lots to 1 like this is, I think, just about as simple as it gets in view of how you interact with these standards. A small subdivision might be 1 lot to 10 or maybe 1 lot to 4. Consolidating 2 to 1 is a fairly simple process.
Great, and so again, staff is comfortable that the subdivision regulations and related zoning requirements have been met, because I don't think we have all the detail in front of us, so we're really relying to some extent on staff.
Yes, that's correct, but also the lack of detail is there's very little to look at.
Right, there's really no issues or anything that to bring to our attention, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else from either any of the commissioners for the applicant or the city? Great. Is there anyone from the public, other than the applicant and its parties, that wishes to come forward and testify or provide comment in this matter? Okay, hearing none, then can I have a motion to close the public hearing in this matter?
A motion to close the public hearing for the plat consolidation of 5521 and 5550 Meadowbrook Court.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion carries in the public hearing and the matter is now closed. I see we have a sample motion prepared by staff in the packet. Is there anything to discuss there from the commission? Hearing none, then can I have a motion for recommendation to approve?
I'll make the recommendation. Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented for plat consolidation of 5521 and 5550 Meadowbrook Court, I move that the Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the City Council to approve the required subdivision as shown on the attached ordinance.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Frostein,
Yes.
Commissioner Gherkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Sheehan,
Yes.
and Chair Buckingham.
Yes. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion for recommendation to approve is granted, and that recommendation will be forwarded to the City Council for first reading at their next meeting on May 13th, I believe it is. The City Council will hear this matter. And that's it for this matter. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Great. On to matter, the second new matter, that's overall matter 4. And that is public hearing regarding a special use permit for 5540 New Wilkie Road. That's Kareem Bouzamour on behalf of Almajaz Corp. Applicant. Forgive me if I've mispronounced anything. So before we get to you, sir, be right with you. Is staff is to file an order and is proper notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has.
Thank you. Can I have a motion from the commission to open the public hearing in this matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
I'll make a recommendation to open the public hearing for special use permit at 5540 New Wilkie Road, and enter the staff report.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein by voice vote. All in favor, please state yes.
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 All opposed, please state no. 4 yeses and 0 nos. The motion carries, and the public hearing in this matter is now open. And now I would call upon petitioner to come forward. Again, we're familiar with your application. We've read it. Now's your opportunity to supplement that or to provide any summaries. We'll ask you questions, and then we'll do the same with the city. So it's good to see you again, sir, and welcome
It's
back.
my pleasure to see you
Yes.
all, and thank you for your
Take
time
it
to
away.
have us again.
So first of all, please state your name, spell your first and last name, provide your business address.
Kareem Bouzamour, and the business address is 5540 South New Wilkie Road.
Could you spell your first and last name, please?
K-A-R-I-M, and the last name B-O-U-Z-A-M-M-O-U-R. Is a long name.
Great. And how do you relate to the business or the petitioner?
A partner in the business?
Great.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you.
Well,
so
actually, I
much.
need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you for having us again this time. Since the last meeting, we worked very closely with the zoning department to follow exactly their guidance, to meet the requirements and all the needs for this project to be able to meet the requirements. We submitted all the blueprints, and we did a lot of modifications that will meet the requirements, including for the smoke. Other than the AC, we added big units for filtering the air inside that eliminated the smoke 100%, basically between the two units, between the AC filtering system and between the suction, the smoke ears that we add in. There's some points that were mentioned that we have to make those modifications, including the removal of the pole sign, and we changed it. We did that on the blueprints. We also gonna add a seal coat to the whole area to have a fresh look for the ground. So that's another point. The patio, we have a patio, but that will be a phase 2. So in the future, we will consider that side, and once we get to that point, we will reach out again to the zoning, and we will follow exactly the next steps that we need to meet to be able to make that part, that phase 2 happening. There is a part on the sidewalk bringing into the parking lot. That part we are adding it and including the bicycle stand where people they can put their bicycles. The blueprints they explain the outside as well for the back of the building. This building that has a walk-in cooler to the outside, but it never been covered. Also the electric box. We are putting a fence on that to be protected and to be safe for people around. Other than that, we followed clearly all the changes that we need to meet. And if there is anything that I missed, please let me know. We are ready to work with the city to be able to make this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from commission?
I noticed originally you wanted it open until midnight. I see the city has adjusted those hours from 6 to 10 p.m. on weekdays and 6 to 11 on weeknights. Is that okay by you?
If that's a city concern for, if I understand the reasons, we will be able to provide a peace of mind and to work with the city to see if we can extend at least to 12 o'clock. And that area is alive at night. If you notice, the businesses are close to us, including the gas station. There is a livelihood going on. So if we reduce from the hours, not only bad for the business that we are attending to establish, but also we are reducing from the livelihood and the traffic that will be in that street.
Well, the gas station is pretty far away from the apartments. You're right across the street.
Well, if that's something that we have to work with, we're willing to do that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
and-
if I could just add a little context to that.
Sure.
The regulation for that is actually the city restricts outdoor seasonal patio activity beyond those hours. They would be able to operate inside later, but not on the patio, just to protect against noise and those adverse consequences.
Okay, because that wasn't in the recommendations, because the way you have it written right now, those are the hours, whether they're inside or out.
If you look,
Right.
Commissioner, if you look at the next bullet point down, it talks about the hours of operation for the business.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
that's all right. So I saw both, I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly. That,
Yeah, the hours there in that second bullet point and in, I'll quote here,
saw it.
section 3F of the ordinance,
Okay.
that's just for the patio. So
Gotcha.
sorry if that wasn't written clearly.
well, I saw the outdoor, and then I saw the limited hours of business daily, so I wasn't sure which one was which. I just wanted to make that clear.
So what are the general hours of, forget the patio?
Yeah, the proposed hours were midday to 12 a.m.
Okay. And that's what's allowed by the code.
The code doesn't really have restrictions on that. That was proposed by the applicant. And again, those patio hours are restricted by code.
And
Right.
so, if we get numerous complaints from the apartments across the street due to the extended hours, then that would have to be adjusted accordingly, correct?
Yeah, certainly. We can get to this in the staff report, but essentially, obviously, the city does respond on a complaint basis to those kinds of things, and we really do our very best to work and strategically try to, build compliance with the businesses to make sure that they aren't adversely impacting their neighbors.
Because there are 2 letters attached to that
That's correct.
condition.
That's
by-
correct.
By neighbors next door. Because, when traffic is leaving at night, those lights are gonna go right into those apartment buildings.
Certainly. So we will address these in the staff report shortly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions,
And-
Commissioner Gherkin, for Mr. Buzemur?
And I know this is gonna be a future thing, but there will be no smoking allowed outside on the patio if
Absolutely,
you.
of
So
course.
it'll only be on the
Inside.
inside of the building
Yes.
that it's allowed.
Absolutely. We respect when it comes to clean air regulations, and outside there is no way to clean that air from the smoke. So we understand clearly that. And that's why we added the other filtration system inside to make sure people come in, they feel like the air is cleaner. It's not smoke around. And the nature of these concept, it's not like other concept that you see around hookah lounges, noisy, smoky. No, this is like in a big picture. It's a classy, laid-back atmosphere. Like go in with your laptop, meet somebody, have a nice drink, and just relax. It's not a place where people they will be partying or all that picture. That's not our intent. We want to create a style that we can be able to expand it to other areas that people will be like, okay, I'm going there to have a sit down and I will enjoy a nice drink, and it's a peaceful atmosphere. And that's the whole idea of what we don't see around.
Okay, so the way I understand it, you've also upgraded the ventilation system inside, or you're gonna upgrade the ventilation system inside the building, correct?
Actually, the ventilation system, it's the same. We added a new units that basically just hook them to the ceiling, and they will filter the air inside. That's not filtered 100% because the AC, we're like, okay, the AC it's strong for the capacity, absolutely. We just want to add something extra.
So you're gonna add something extra?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I mean by upgrade. You're gonna upgrade the system to clean the
Yes,
air. according-
yes.
Okay.
Sorry for misunderstanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Any other questions? So I have a few, sir. On the patio, there's actually potentially 2 separate patios,
Yes.
right? So there's one that's going to be potentially on the side,
Yes,
and then there's one in the front.
yes.
So which
Phase,
one are you doing first?
The first phase is the one on the front.
The front.
The one on the side, that's on the future.
Okay.
If we decided we want to go for it, then we'll reach out back to the zoning and we'll go from there for the requirements and how we can make that happen.
Okay.
But for now, it will be only the phase 1, which is the front patio.
And I see you're going to put a barrier wall
Yes.
enclosing it, which
Yes.
is 6 feet, right?
Yes,
Okay. Will there be music piped in
No.
to that patio?
No, we want it to be a peaceful atmosphere to sit down outside. You may be inside, you want to have a phone call outside, or you just want to be by yourself. In a beautiful evening with the summertime, I want to sit down, and it's hard to find places. I'm going to work on my laptop, and that's what the idea to come outside.
Sure.
Maybe a gentleman with his wife or a couple sitting just enjoying a drink, but no smoking outside, period.
Okay.
That's
And
not allowed. in
no
Oakland.
smoking outside, no speaker outside.
No speaker
Piping
outside.
in the music. Okay.
Absolutely. We want it to be peaceful and more romantic sit down outside.
And there's no plans for applying for a liquor license
No.
right now, is
No,
there?
no, there is not. We want to keep it less on the low key. Tend the liquor, it created a different atmosphere, not intended for this prototype. This prototype with soft drinks, no alcohol involved.
Okay. What kind of drinks? Just curious.
Tea, cappuccino, some Middle Eastern warm drinks. It depends on the season. Shakes, fresh
Sure.
juices, something healthy, something people will feel like, okay, I can pick up from the menu a drink that suits me. Or you can combine, pick up an apple
Mhm.
with the banana and we make a shake, and it's perfect. It's a Mediterranean style, it's more to the healthy side. No alcohol, no imitation
Sure.
liquids or anything like that.
What about any food?
No food,
No food.
no food.
And then what type of music are we talking about?
Soft music. Easy listening music, soft
Okay.
music, like piano, but it's on the low back, like
Okay.
background music.
Okay.
So you can talk, we can hear each other. I don't have to yell
Okay.
like I go places and I can't hear who's in front of me, literally.
Sure. Sounds pretty relaxing.
That's the whole idea.
All told. So you operate one of these now, is that correct?
Yes, my partner already has a place that he's involved with, and we have also other businesses not in the
Okay.
same category.
And the one you operate is it Schaumburg
Yes.
on Roselle Road there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Golf and Roselle, okay. And is that a fairly similar operation in terms of
In a way, but
those matters you just described?
exactly. That's the points that I mentioned. That will make this concept different from other hookah lounges. If you go any hookah lounges, you sit down for 30 minutes. If you are not a smoker, you're like, I gotta go. You can't hear the person in front of you. So we came with the idea: the hookah lounge should not be on that picture. It should be a place where I want to go. It's laid back, nice background music. I feel proud to take my family if I have to sit down outside with the kids not around the smoke. And that's the picture I want to bring in.
And
And
is
that's
that-
what is missing.
Sure, and is that how you're operating the Schaumburg one?
No, Chambord is
Oh,
totally
that's
different.
different. That's
Yes.
a totally different
Yes,
model, more of
correct.
a party atmosphere with.
Yes,
Okay.
because all the hookah lounges, they have that atmosphere.
Hmm.
Our concept is totally different from every concept. It's like going to a Starbucks. You don't see a party. You see background music, for example, just giving it as an example. You sit down, you do your thing, and nobody bothers you. You feel peaceful. And that's what we want to offer this caliber of customers.
Okay. Because you understand, obviously, the concerns that we would have. This is a special use where we need to approve it. We just need to make sure there's no negative effects to the surrounding community, particularly those apartments across the street. So we need to be mindful of sound, smell,
Yes,
and other disruption coming
absolutely,
and going.
100%.
You understand that, right?
Yes, I do,
so
and
if-
I'm on the same understanding,
Okay.
on the same point of view that you have. And that's the idea that I want to create. I want to change the idea of people looking at the hookah lounge as a place where it's loud, it's smoky, it's not suit for everybody. I want to create a style that everybody will feel welcome to come and to have a nice time with friends and family. And that's what I want to offer.
Got it. Any other questions?
No, I don't know if that area currently has lights for the parking, does it?
It does. It does have very strong lights already.
Okay, I didn't know. I mean, I wanted to ask. I go past there
Oh,
all the
you
time,
never-
but I didn't see it.
So they have a 16 or 12 of them on.
Okay. All right, that was the other question I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Appreciate
your
it.
time. Good to see you again.
Sure. We may have questions later, so we'll let you know. Staff report?
Yeah, certainly. So just a bit about the zoning and the policy background. So you may remember the city changed the regulations for smoking lounges. Well, they created a new category for smoking lounges earlier this year, which were then allowed to be permitted by special use within the. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Oh. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. So the lost my train of thought. Excuse me. Yeah, the city created a new category for smoking lounges earlier this year in order to basically provide an equitable path forward for businesses of that nature in town, and to also eliminate some kind of duplicative language within the zoning code. And so essentially this business would be subject to two separate sets of regulations, both the state regulation, which is the Smoke-Free Illinois Act. They set regulations on what buildings they can be in, and that the business cannot derive more than 20% revenue from accessory sales. So food and beverage is very much an accessory sale to what is the tobacco product. Within the Rolling Meadows Code of Ordinances, there's also a requirement that a smoking lounge can only exist within cannot be less than 2,000 feet from another smoking lounge or a specialty shop. So there are two retailers that are both around 1,800 feet, I believe, roughly 1,800 feet away. So this is not managed through zoning. If council chooses to approve this plan, that would be at their discretion to waive that requirement for this business.
So that's not a commission, that's nothing we would do here.
Yeah, correct. That's not within the
purely in
zoning
the city
code.
council.
It's within the.
It's outside the zoning.
It's
code.
outside of the zoning code, correct.
Okay.
So the building itself is within the C2 corridor commercial zoning district. Obviously, a very diverse use zoning district. A lot of different types and scales of businesses within that, and you see that kind of represented in the area around there. So you have Meridian Banquet Hall kind of behind the building. You have a number of restaurants, Burger King, Chef Ping, Oberweis, as well as a car wash. And then across the road, roughly 270 or so feet across the road, is the multifamily residential uses. So obviously, I mean, we've spoken about this a little bit. I'll just go straight through this, but you know, hookah being a smoked tobacco product, very popular originated in Persia and very popular across the Middle East, South Asia, North Africa, as well as those diaspora communities globally. So the applicant had originally indicated that they did not want to serve alcohol, but wanted to keep that option open in the future. This, is kind of in flux. I think seeing the business model kind of adapt. So, we're happy not to see alcohol, and it's quite difficult to maintain that 80% sales ratio of tobacco if you do serve alcohol. But serving sweets and snacks and teas and coffees and things. So, as part of the staff's kind of due diligence on researching this, we did make contact with community development staff in Schaumburg and kind of quizzed them about nature of operations of hookah lounges in Schaumburg, and they reported that there had been very low complaints. If any, she couldn't find any evidence of complaints. There had been no citations, odor, noise, or otherwise, and that it had generally been a well-performing and well-managed sector.
How many are in Schaumburg?
I think it was 8.
Wow.
Here's the busy one, of course. So in terms of improvements, so we are still working with preliminary plans. Obviously, there's only so much that we can expect applicants to be able to commit to before receiving their permits and their special use permit in particular. So they have indicated quite a number of improvements on the structure itself. Obviously, and Karim, Mr. Bizamore, highlighted some of those, but I'll just go through them kind of sequentially. So we have the patio modifications at the front. That includes some landscaping and some more additional planting. A future phase 2 side yard patio, so that would be at the south edge of the building there, kind of squared out there. They are closing the drive-through aisle. The drive-through aisle is in relatively poor shape, and it doesn't really conform to modern drive-through code requirements, so it would need to generally be closed anyway. We'd like to see that going to a more active use as a patio in the future. They are providing bicycle parking per code requirements. They've offered to modernize the front sign, so the pole sign no longer conforms to sign code requirements. That would be replaced with a conforming monument sign. They are connecting the concrete walk, which goes from, essentially, you can see it called out there at the kind of left of the diagram there, and that basically there's a concrete walk that just stops, and then you've got grass, and then back to the right-of-way. So they've offered to fill in that gap and allow better pedestrian access into the front there. We are expecting to see a full resealing and restriping of the parking lot, which is going to include that striping as well as some other modifications to close that patio, and then the screening at the rear of the property where it is a fairly unsightly arrangement at present. In terms of parking and access, by code they are required to have 25 spaces. There are 31 on site by my count, and obviously this is a good to have. It just does mean that also if their patios do get a little bit busier, they do have that little bit of buffer room as well. So it's a one-way drive that circulates around the circumference of the building, and you've got signage at each entrance and exit. There's 3 ADA spaces, and essentially in terms of traffic, it's difficult to really see into the future and what the impacts will be, but staff don't anticipate that it's going to be really any different to a restaurant or drive-through use, which it has been in the past. So in terms of the ventilation schedule, we're still working with them to finalise the ventilation requirements. Again, this is a more costly and technical endeavour that we expect to see finalised shortly. They're working very closely with staff and the city building official to make sure that everything complies with the mechanical code. And they've also offered, again, as Mr. Buzamore highlighted, that to make an additional use of what's called a smoke heater, which is essentially a roof-mounted ventilation system. They're specifically designed for tobacco smoke, and they're very effective in removing odor and particulate. So what we're hoping to see from this kind of this arrangement is that we have both code compliance with the International Mechanical Code on ventilation standards, but we also have an assurance that essentially any air being taken out of that building by that ventilation system is pre-filtered and not dumping smoke elsewhere. So in terms of the front patio, we have been working with a couple of different drafts of the site plan. So they had originally proposed a much shorter fence, but then in a later edition of the drafting suggested that it might be preferable to have a little more screening for that front patio. Now the city code does require it to be a maximum of 3 feet in height for a decorative wall that's in front of the building. We don't really permit fences in front of the building in any of our zoning districts. So we did want to raise that and obviously allow the commission to show their preferences on that and discuss that. And now in terms of addressing some of the potential nuisances from these, so in terms of nuisance sound, and obviously for any nightlife kind of venue, this is a very clear potential hazard, and given the proximity to residential uses, we take this very, very seriously. And so the city requires patios to be closed by 11. Also the noise ordinance, it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday to Thursday, and then 11 on Friday, Saturday. So they would have to abide by those requirements for any outside activity. We also have the noise ordinance, which prohibits nuisance noise after 11 o'clock anyway. So obviously this is a management, strategy for the petitioners. Essentially, we do really want to see active management of ensuring that we don't have carryover noise, we don't have people congregating in the parking lot after hours, all of these kinds of things. And it's quite standard practice in that line of work to be, managing that as actively as possible. We do expect that. So in all, I mean, comparing it to maybe a bar use, if they were serving alcohol, they would by code be allowed to operate until 2 a.m. This is, significantly less than that, and we think that the applicant has made sufficient efforts to mitigate noise. Again, on traffic and parking, it meets the parking ratio requirements, and we really don't expect it to operate at any kind of dissimilarity from restaurant uses in terms of its volume or impact. And then again, with the secondhand smoke and odor, we think that the applicant has proposed a good solution in mitigating this as well. So I will leave it to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Questions?
My question is, as before, at what point, if, of course, the light's coming out of the area at 12 o'clock in the morning, and you start getting complaints, at what point in time do you start making conversations with them? What level of complaints need to happen, just out of curiosity?
I mean, when we receive a complaint, we
so if it's
we
just
send
one,
it.
you would go ahead and talk to them, right?
Glenn can speak to this in more detail.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner, in that hypothetical, to be honest, I don't know that we talk to them.
Okay.
I mean, traffic leaving at legal hours is part of being in that proximity to a commercial
Okay.
business. Some of what Mr. Savage was referring to was, there are different rules of thumb in how you evaluate special use permits.
Okay.
You're not required to do this, but I think generally a good one is to compare the impacts of the use to the impacts of permitted uses that could operate in the same place.
Okay.
There's a restaurant right next door. It can serve liquor legally until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And it can also, what we've proposed in this draft ordinance is to apply the same rules to this establishment's patio as would apply to a restaurant patio.
Okay.
Don't have to agree with that. There
No,
can certainly be the
I'm-
argument. Well, I was just saying that,
Right.
it is a different use. There is a special privilege in some ways. You can, try to pull that in to be responsive to, other considerations that apply here that don't apply to restaurants. Just
Right.
trying to explain staff's thinking in that.
Okay, because I don't think the one next to it is strictly across. I think it may hit some of the apartments, but I'm not sure. I do go past there, but I think Luigi is a little bit more to the right.
Their entry and exit driveway is maybe 20 feet or so.
Okay.
Called 25 feet at the most, driveway to driveway.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Any other questions? The potential for a patio on the side, which, may be down the road, as currently envisioned, would that require an amendment to this special use, or would that be already approved as long as it's pursuant to kind of the plans that would be submitted this
Yeah.
time?
So part of the thinking was by approving what you see here, you would essentially be approving them to expand into that patio space into the future. There is, maybe some interpretation there where you could argue that if they wanted to do a fresh patio expansion without having brought it here, that it may require an amendment to that special use. So this is why we brought a phase 2 development as part of this plan.
But that would be something to be determined by staff later with their proposal for the new patio on the side, would that be such a character that it would require an amendment to the special use, or is it the same thing that you already approved in the front?
The second. So we wrote this, ordinarily, you'd have to come back. Since you have preliminary plans, we wrote this so that we can authorize it after the fact. You don't have to recommend that. Again, there are a couple, much like hours of operation, I'm trying to articulate what we drafted, just so we all have a common understanding of it. But also, we've tried to apply just, if we know changes are coming, we try to minimize the number of hearings any applicant has to go through. There are arguments against that. There are arguments to have folks do more hearings, to have more public engagement. That's always a decision call, or a judgment call.
Sure. And on the barrier or the fencing for these patios, the minimum required by the zoning code is 3 feet?
Maximum
right?
required, maximum allowed, yeah.
So talk to us about the 6 versus 3 difference. I think petitioner was willing to do 6.
Yeah. So this is a interesting consequence of the zoning code, right? So if this was a restaurant patio, it just says it has to have some type of barrier. It's not particular as to what. I don't even think it has to be a fence. The patios, the way the draft reads and the way you'd have to administer it at the maximum is that the front one has to be limited to 3 feet, and then the side one can actually go all the way up to like 8.5 feet. That's something you could allow them to go up to 6 feet, but that takes a variation. That wasn't presented to us in time to make that notice for tonight. By going to that 4 feet, I think it's either 3 or 3.5 is the threshold. Basically, whatever the code compliant threshold is, without the variation, that's what they'd have to build. The reason for that policy is, having tall fences in front yards is usually unattractive, uninviting, shields a lot of the property from view, so on.
So, Mr. Buzimira, I thought there was something in the application about 6 feet in the front.
6 feet, the fence on the side, that will be 6 feet.
Okay.
The one on the front, we are allowed for the 3 feet, and if you want to allow us to do more, we will. If it's not, we will keep it 3 feet, absolutely.
Okay, so the approval would be for 3 feet unless we require something more.
Yes, and
Okay.
your suggestion, if you see that it needs to be more than that, we're willing to work with whatever you decide and you see it's fit for
Okay.
this location.
And then the 6 feet is on the opposite side.
Yes,
And that's gonna be whatever you decide to build according to the city code,
Yes,
correct?
yes. We will always come back to the city to see. Sometimes there will be updates. There will be new regulations as you go. We want to belong to the city. We want to grow with the city to do other businesses. So we want to have an understanding that we want to follow all the regulations, all the standards, all the rules to have a long, healthy relation. And we will be doing our best to keep it that way.
So the 6 foot fence, would it be on the car wash side or the opposite side? Just curious.
The other side,
The other side, gotcha.
yes.
Thank
And-
you.
Any other discussion items on the size of the barrier in the front? Is there any desire of the commission to impose something more than what the code would require? I mean, it sounds like there's a rationale for it being only 3 in the front for the reasons you stated, Mr. Savage.
Yeah, certainly. So the rationale for having a 3-foot decorative wall in the front is to maintain that kind of clear line of sight, visibility, and openness to our street frontages, which I think is generally something that people find attractive and kind of nice about Rolling Meadows is that open air and spacious kind of atmosphere. We understand that this may be a more sensitive use for some people, and if we did want to actually restrict some of that visibility into the building, then you would have that option, but it's really at your discretion.
Any thoughts there?
If it's
I think the 6-foot fence looked lovely. I mean, from what the picture looked like, and I
Yes.
think for the people that are in your business, it would be nice to have that privacy.
Yes, that was that. Yeah.
And it looked like it created ambiance. So
Yes.
I mean, I like the 6 foot.
Because
No.
the idea of creating something more warm, sit down, that's the reason you want to create more privacy. And that's the idea we come with that height. But if it's something the city see it differently, we will go with the 3. But if you are a customer and you come and you compare sitting down, it's a nice, beautiful sit down outside, plants, maybe water fountain, and no music, just you have peaceful night, it make a big difference between 3 feet and 6 feet.
Yeah, I think the
Absolutely.
thing of it is, if you want the 6 feet, then you have to come back for a variance to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, we will do everything by the regulations and whatever.
Which
is
would be
recommended.
3 feet in the front, and then you could do the 6 feet, 6
Yeah.
feet on the other side.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So you want to do the 6 feet and you're willing to come back to ask for that variance?
If it's an option, yes.
Okay.
So could we approve this anyways, and they can come back for the variance or not?
This is a process question for
It's just checking with the attorney about it. Sorry, we have a whole sort of I Love Lucy kind of dash to get the chocolates, but it's with legal advice. So finally, I had a good joke today. Thank you. I've been
was
trying
good.
all day. So yeah, we didn't know the going above 3 feet in the front yard requires a zoning variation. We did not have the chance to notice that for this hearing. You would have to do it at a future hearing to be able to authorize going above that 3 feet.
So we can go with the 3 feet,
Right.
and we keep it for now with the 3 feet. And if there is any suggestion from customers that they would love to have more privacy, if we see there is a demand for that privacy more, then we'll come back and we will address that requirement.
Okay. That's what we need to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I don't see, based on the intended use, in that this is not going to be a nightclub, you're not going to be serving alcohol, there's not going to be music outside or smoking outside, to me, it doesn't seem like this is something that we would require you to do a 6-foot fence.
Not a
Right?
requirement,
If he wants
but
to
wanted
do
you
it,
would
that's
just- it would
up
just
to
be the
you.
ask, it would just be
But
a variance.
it's a question of, are we going to require it
No.
or are we going to allow it? It sounds like I don't feel the need to require it unless somebody else feels differently.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
We couldn't do it at this meeting
Right,
anyways, because it's
right.
a zoning
Right.
thing.
No, and then if the gentleman wants to and he comes back, then we'll have a precedent.
Right.
Right,
His business
correct.
is running
Yeah,
to sort
we'll
of
know.
base
Yeah.
our
Right.
Yes,
our
and it will have,
decisions on.
once the business is born and is alive, it will be a different look at it from
Sure.
every angle.
Okay.
And it will give you a
Sure.
close look, exactly all these ideas that we talked about when you see life in the scene. You will see it differently. It gives you a different perspective.
Sure, makes sense. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
And
so
then,
much.
Mr. Savage or staff, what business was in the property before? Was that a video
Yeah,
gaming?
that was Isabella's. It was a video gaming lounge.
Okay, and how long did that operate? Do you guys know
I
offhand?
believe it was 3 years, 5 years.
3 to 5, again, before any of us here were with the city.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions of anybody?
I think before that it was a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Got it. Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to come forward and provide comment or testimony? Now is your opportunity. Hello, sir. Could you please raise your right hand? Folks, if you're all... gonna
We're all from the
testify-
same complex.
Okay, but if you all want to speak as well, let's swear everybody in at once. And then we'll call you up in turn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Great. Everyone's acknowledged in the affirmative.
Yes.
So, sir, you want to go first? Could you please state your name, first and last, spell your name, and provide your address?
Okay. My name is Terry Durava, D-U-R-A-V-A.
And
Okay.
address?
All right. I have lived at Autumn Chase Condo Association, which is located directly across the street from the 5540 New Wilkie commercial property, making this request. I have lived at this complex for 45 years. I did serve on the association board for 15 years and still volunteer my time to the association whenever requested. I'm requesting that you do not approve this request for special permit for this location. The reason for this request is for several. Autumn Chase Community is a complex made of 96 units, which is made up mostly of young families and senior citizens. Having this bar or lounge across the street will dramatically affect us in many ways. Exposing children to the use of tobacco products as an acceptable and glamorous, which could lead to substance and health issues. Seniors may also be exposed to health issues that would be affected by secondhand smoke. We need to protect both these groups for potential risk of tobacco use. The air quality will be affected because of the close proximity of this location. The community will be greatly affected by the late night operation. This will increase the noise, increase late night traffic, increase loitering, littering around our complex. All these are issues that concern us very much. Parking at Autumn Chase is a major issue. We have 96 units, as I stated, with only 166 parking spaces. That is less than 2 parking spaces per unit. Because we also have an 18-unit townhouse complex and an industrial complex to the south of us with all connecting parking lots. We have worked hard to try to alleviate this parking issue, but it's very difficult. Our complex over the years has experienced many building and unit break-ins, vandalism of the cars, residents' personal property, and loitering. The increased foot traffic will create a bigger problem and increase dramatically, which will increase the need to have police response to our complex. This is something both you and us do not want to see to happen. We also ensure with the effect of property values on our units. With this hooligans lounge just across the street, it will dramatically decrease the property values of our complex. We've worked hard and spent large amounts of time trying to maintain the property and increase the property rent. Believe me, it's a very difficult process. We don't want to see all our money go to waste just because of this lounge being directly across the street. On behalf of myself and the residents of Autumn Chase Condo Association, I want to thank you for your attention, and in the best interest of our complex and the surrounding communities, please reject this request. It is not the right location. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Mr. Darava or Darava? Darava. Thank you, sir. Were you one of the ones that, there were 2 letters that were written objecting to this? Did you write one of them,
there
or?
was another lady who probably has sent several emails to you guys.
Okay, but you're not one of the letter writers?
Say that, I'm sorry.
You didn't write a letter into the city?
No, I did not send
Okay.
a letter to you.
Okay.
But I know of a lady who has been corresponding with you.
Right, we have 2 objections in the record.
Right.
Correct. Okay, just wanted to get my facts straight. Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to add to that?
He said everything for me, but I
So,
have.
if you want to add anything, we're going to need your name,
Okay.
first name, last name, and your address. And
My
spell your name,
Yes,
please.
my name is Berta Ortega, Ortega, and I live in Autumn Chase Condominium, 5509 Chateau.
Okay.
Right there. So
Go
I
ahead.
wanna mention the same thing that he says. My biggest concern is the noise, the traffic, and the impact that, you know, when we have kids and teenagers there and seniors like me and a lot of seniors that live in these complexes, I think our property is gonna decrease because some people have negative perceptions of the hookah lounges due to association with smoking, the noise, and lack of social decorum. So before it was Isabella restaurant, and yes, they have machines there, but if I live there and I see that they always empty. They have no customers, maybe 2, 3 every day. So, I mean, for us it was no problem because there's nothing there. So that's it. I mean, I don't agree with this place, the hookah place. Please, no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir,
Yes, my
please
name-
state your first name and last name, spell your name, and provide your address.
Yes, my first name is Gene. Kind of long name, but I'm going to spell Eugeniusz. Last name Giba. My address is 5401 Chateau Drive, Atom Chase. I live right across that planning hookah lunch business. And I support our residents says, they said that basically I oppose that business. That's because what was said. And I would like to add a few things. Generally, I'm not, I'm pro-business and, create additional income, and things like that kind of offset our taxes, things like that. But, however, as a father, having 4 kids, adult actually, but still living with us, I know that kind of places that could be very, very attractive for teenagers and young adults, me over 21, and it's like, it's right across, the curiosity, they might, well, what's there, and I don't really know how this business operates. It's like I said, I'm pro-business, but I give you an example. It might be something like right about, I would say, quarter mile located on Algonquin Drive, there is a marijuana shop, okay? And I believe you can walk in and you can buy for $2 a little pack. So going back to this business, how that business is going to exactly operate? Is it something that I can walk in for a $2 or $5? I can smoke there and sit there for a few hours. That's kind of that's kind of it is. We're talking about addiction, and it's really important. It's and if you go like just a while ago, if you could go to see the parking lots playing bunch of kids, they do play because our community is like, it's not a retirement community, usually the young couples, having kids, things like that. So it's if there is, it's this kind of business, it's attract the people, attract the kids. And I understand the business, no matter what kind of protection you use, precaution, you create the barriers, things like that, but still there is one thing, it is attractive to the people. It's like the nightclub, and it's a problem. So as you see, it's not easy. The other thing is, we have a bunch of restaurants around, and we know that for example, there is on the right side of this particular business it is a car wash, and we can hear the fence all the way till wherever the business is open. 10 p.m., 11 p.m. You can still hear the powerful fans, the blowers that they blow the water out of the cars. It creates noise. You can't control that. I'm not saying that they're gonna have some kind of powerful fans that they're gonna create additional noise, but you can't stop. It is. How about, can you actually control your clients, and the clients, they're gonna leave 12 p.m. the business with the squeezing tires, with the noise, things like that? We experience already there. On the left side of it, there was a restaurant and there was some parties, and the parties continued to 11. There was a exception that they can stay till 12. the kids go crazy, you know, the noise is there, you know. By the time you call the police, obviously police does a very good job, I have to say, to Rolling Meadows Police Department. But by the time they come and to solve the issue, they are gone. They clear their nose, they wake up the kids, the things like that, and it's, you know, they cannot control their clients. You know. So that's the thing, you know, it's, like I said, I understand, but it's, you know.
Sure.
Also, I think it's worth to notice that because the location is kind of on both sides of the street, the work site. So there's many bikers coming from Arlington Heights. They're using both sides of the sidewalks, and then sometimes, especially on the afternoon, because people coming, you know, after work, and they go to the woods, meaning Woodfield, you know, the Woodfield, around the Woodfield. I forgot the name. Anyway, bunch of bikers, you know, going. So you see that, you know. I know that whatever the business would be, you know, that it's gonna be, you know, the people will come, you know, and go. But also, you know, it's so that's why you know, we oppose that. You know, it's like I said, a great example is like going to that shop, you know, and. I've never been there, but I hear that. I know the family. They struggle, they fight because you know, it's easy. The people begging for the $2, $3, whatever the little bag costs for the marijuana. They don't care. They go a quarter of a mile. They buy the stuff. You know, somehow they are able to get that. So I don't know how this business is going to operate. You know,
Sure.
That's why
no,
we are, you know. We don't know what the future steps will be, you know, improvement, things like that. I'm not, you know, I'm pro-business, but unfortunately, it's really too close to the community.
Sure. Thank you, sir. What is your name and spell your last name?
Giba, G-I-B-A.
G-I-B-A.
And kind of a long name, E-U, G-E-N-I-U-S-Z.
Okay, so you did write a letter.
I sent the email, no.
Or an email, yes.
The email, yes.
Okay. Your last name is?
Giba.
Giba.
G-I-B-A.
Yes, okay. Thank you, sir. A couple questions, Mr. Buzamore, along those lines. You heard members of the community there rightly concerned about the noise, the potential activity around the area, the effect of, you know, there'll be smoking on the premises, maybe not the most savory thing in the world in certain people's minds. But let me ask you, is there going to be a minimum age to enter the business?
I appreciate the concern from everybody that put their concern about this matter. As I heard everybody, it was reflecting a picture of a hookah lounge as we see in other places. As I want to go back to what we stated in the beginning, our concept is to create a coffee lounge. It just happened to have a hookah inside. And for the smoke part of it, we add in more filter systems, so we make sure the air that goes outside is definitely cleaner than the air already exists.
Sure.
And that's why we added that. So this way we addressed these points. When it comes to the noise, there will be no activity outside. It's a romantic sit down outside, like sitting in any coffee lounge on the outside premises. When it comes to the age, this is a 21 years old. We will have always control when it comes to the age. We are not a place where we have kids. Kids comes with family, parents, they may have a juice, ice cream, or anything like that, and they enjoy the sit down.
So will you be checking IDs then?
Absolutely. I've been in the business for 35 years. I did Trump Tower, I did Drake Tower, I did a lot of venues, a lot of food chains, Texas do Brasil, Fogo de Chao, and I was a leader in these establishments. And a part of what I do is control the age verification when it comes to that. For the cost for the hookah, This is not a place where a kid can walk in with $2 and get something. A hookah will cost $40, $50. And you add a drink, you are talking about $70, $80 probably to the person by the time they leave. Other than the age, we provide security, we provide age verification, we provide filtration system to the conserve the air. We have no parties in this place, no activity outside, either 10 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock midday or 10 o'clock. We respect the neighbors, and we want to have a close relation to our neighbors. Either there are business venues or there are properties where people live. I have kids, so I understand.
Commissioner
Sir.
Sheehan.
Could you please state for the record that hookah is for tobacco, not for marijuana?
It's for tobacco, 100% no marijuana. Absolutely.
And do you have a maintenance plan in place or in mind that you would be willing to give to the city that would state how you will take care of your HVA system to ensure that your smoke eaters, your filtration is clean and that they don't get clogged up and then end up sending that bad air out? I know what they do. I know that it does provide cleaner air, but if you have a maintenance plan in place and you stick to that and adhere to that, and you can give us assurance that you don't intend to pollute and you intend to do what you say you're going to do, I think that would go a long way too.
Absolutely, and thank you for that, addressing this point. All the filtration system, if you don't attend them properly, they are going to break. And that goes from a refrigerator to any equipment that has the filter, basically. For us, we will go with the standard of these equipments, and the company, the HVAC, will be using for them to come periodically to change these filters based to their recommendation and the usage of this business. So we definitely, that's very, very important, because that's one of the essence of our business, to have anybody walking and the first impression, it's beautiful, laid back, calm, and so clean, fresh air. I had a cigar lounge in South Carolina. I did the same thing. There is no, and with cigars, it's worse than the hookah. And there is nobody came in and said there is a smoke. There is no smoke. As soon as they smoke cigar, it gets sucked right away, filtered in the charcoal, and oxygen and the air comes out clean, other than the regular filtration system. So I don't rely primarily on the AC unit only, because that will be wrong in my point of view. I want to filter this smoke before it gets to the other system. So I did that in the past, and I know it was effective on the feedback of everybody that was coming to my lounge. And I will be glad to do this and to provide even this HVAC company that we'll contract with, and they will be basically doing the maintenance for these HVAC units. And we can submit those reports, either they are weekly, monthly, whatever, however it is. Because even the restaurant business, the hood system, it's the same thing. We have to do within 3 months, depends on each city, the filtration system to be cleaned and to report to the city that it was done properly by a contracting company, basically. Absolutely, I do understand the concerns, and we will do our best to pass just the regular way of addressing the issue, but to do more to satisfy everybody and to have everyone have a peace of mind that this business, it's a positive add to the community. It is not a place where kids, they will hang out smoking, or a bad neighborhood kind of people, they will hang out around. No, absolutely not. It's a classy, laid back, royal style of lounge where you will go and you will feel that this is where I want to come.
Thank you, sir. A couple questions on that. What's the typical age of your client base?
Towards this area and the surrounding towns, the age will be 20s to 40s to 60s. But we are open, 21, the minimum age anyway when it comes to the tobacco or hookah or anything like that. So
Sure.
we are open mind to everybody. As long as you are legal age, you are 21, and we verify your ID, you are welcome.
What if someone brings their own tobacco products in?
No. Nobody allowed to bring anything from outside when it comes to the tobacco or beverage. Absolutely. Because that's not...
It's taking away from your business.
Oh, it's not that.
For one.
You don't know what it is.
As I stated, I've been too long in this business, food and beverage. You can bring some food with you. If you get poisoned, how we are going to know if you got poison from my place or another place to be able to see if this is an issue nationwide or just in my establishment? So for that reason, we don't allow anything outside the establishment to come in.
So if someone's smoking a cigarette in the corner,
We are not allowed.
so you would tell
outside?
them,
No. No. not inside or outside. We'll
You would
put
tell them,
signs,
put it
no
out.
smoking allowed, period, outside. If somebody, I see somebody, so I'll ask nicely. If they refuse, I'll ask them to leave. No.
Cigars?
No, no cigars, no cigarettes, no smoke, literally. Smoke is prohibited outside.
And obviously cannabis, same?
No,
Definitely not?
No.
Okay. Okay, any other questions of anybody? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I mean,
Thank you
folks,
so much for coming, and I appreciate your input. Very nice to have you with us.
yeah, we really appreciate you being here and your input. What we're trying to do is balance, the interest between, this is special use, so the goal is to balance the interests of the business owner and the applicant against the surrounding community. And these can be tough cases. And so in my mind, I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel, but I believe there's enough controls on on the nature of this business and what it's intended to be. It's not a nightclub, it's not a bar. I think the externalities or the negative effect on the community is going to be minimized. I'm not saying it won't be there at all. I'm not diminishing what you're saying and what your perspectives are. But I believe there's enough controls on the business and what they intend and what is going to be required of them that I'm hopeful that this will be minimal impact to the surrounding community. Again, really appreciate your concerns. And I don't know, is there anything else to add?
Question to staff.
For
In the recommendation, can we ask them to include the HAVAC contract for the air cleaner?
Yeah, certainly. So we would need to establish a bit more of a systematic approach to this. You should include that in the draft ordinance.
Why don't you
Glenn,
just ask
did you-
for biannually?
Yeah.
Maybe
the
Glenn
maintenance.
I'm just saying, just include a maintenance contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Whatever.
if it's biannually, then they at least
Okay.
have to do it twice a year. That's standard with HVAC anyway, so
Okay.
that would probably be
Okay.
adequate.
If I could, Commissioner, in your
Sure.
deliberations, we heard a few things. One would be if you're inclined to recommend approval with conditions, we heard these conditions. In addition to draft ordinance, permit smoking only inside the property. Potentially, we heard one comment about amplified sound, so that may or may not be part of your motion. And then I think we would want to see the technical submissions for those units before we figured out if it was biannual or quarterly or what have you. We can work that out with the city council. I think it's adequate if your recommendation just says that there needs to be a mechanism to ensure those systems are being maintained.
Thank you. I mean, I would be all in favor of including that, particularly those three conditions in the motion, particularly the first two, that smoking is only required or is only allowed inside, and that there's going to be no amplified music outside. That's going to be a condition of your special use, along with the submission of the HVAC maintenance plan to the city's satisfaction. Are you in agreement with that?
I am in agreement, absolutely in favor for doing this as well.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anything else from anybody that hasn't already been said? Okay. Can I then have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
I'll motion to close the public hearing in the matter.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
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 Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now closed. We have a sample motion for recommendation to approve the petition in the packet. Can I have a motion for recommendation to approve with conditions as we've discussed?
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit for the smoking lounge on 5540 New Wilkie Road. The application and plan meets the standards and grants special use permit and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. 1, permit smoking only on the inside. Number 2, make sure that the air cleaner is checked and it's running properly annually or biannually. Number 3, no music outside. Subject to the following conditions, we have incorporated into the draft ordinance.
Thank you, Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Furstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerken,
Yes.
Commissioner Sheehan,
Yes.
Chair Buckingham.
I'm also a yes. I believe the standards have been met, and that the impact on the community is constrained. But I would ask petitioner to be very diligent in the operation of your business, because the city will be watching, and it needs to be in accordance with what we've discussed tonight. So with that, that's approval of 4 yeses and 0 nos. And this is just a motion that we've approved to recommend to the city council to approve your special use. So what we've done tonight is not binding, it's a recommendation of the city council. City council will hear the matter at their next meeting. The first reading of this matter will be on May 13th. And they may approve it on the merits then. So folks, if you're interested in pursuing this further and speaking before the city council and voicing your objections, you have another opportunity to do that May 13th for the city council. I'd encourage you to do so if you're interested. And that's it for this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Okay, any need to take a break, anybody, or should we just roll right in?
I'm fine. I don't know about anybody else. I'm good.
Okay. Let's do it. The next item is item number,
1.
originally number 1, that's item of pending business, which is a public hearing regarding a text amendment implementing the recommendations of the Kirchhoff Road Corridor Study and establishing the TC Town Center District. And this is a continuation of prior meetings, and as we understand it, as it's been explained to us, the City Council is still considering the Kirchhoff Road Corridor Study, and specifically has ordered a traffic study pursuant to that, and all we're discussing tonight, as we understand it, is the 2 zoning matters before us, not the road diet or the anything related to the broader study, which again that's already been heard by the city council, by the commission, and it's now in front of the city council. So that being said, Mr. Cole or anybody else, if you want to take it away and provide any other additional background or preliminary matters.
We have a staff presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay, take it away.
All right. If we can get the presentation up on the screen. So, yes. We should have a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Sure. Can I have a motion to reopen the public hearing in this matter?
Do we want to do both at once or just one at a time?
Let's do one at a time.
Okay. I'll motion to open the public hearing for the text amendment implementing the recommendations of the Kirchhoff Road Corridor Study and establishing the TC Town Center District.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. The motion carries and the public hearing is reopened for consideration tonight. And I now turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, this evening we're talking really about implementing a subset of recommendations from the pending Kirchhoff Road Corridor Study. This first item, which is really the bulk of the lifting, implements most of the zoning recommendations from the study. It creates a new town center zoning district and a whole new set of rules that go with it about bulk, design, parking, and signage. There are some other tweaks in the zoning code that we thought made sense to take care of in this ordinance as well. Some provisions specific to dollar stores and multiple principal buildings on a lot, and how the city handles plan development processes. There's one set of changes which we thought was discrete, which we broke out, which is about streamlining the city's landscape rules. They're tucked into a few different spots in the code right now. At some points, in some cases, they contradict each other. We think we agree that it's a good idea to revisit those, but we're hoping to do that at a future day, at a future meeting. So some updates from March. Again, you'll remember that this commission was unable to recommend the study on a whole without holding back on the transportation recommendation. The city council took that seriously. They're taking additional time to consider the study. We expect at their next meeting, they've directed us to get proposals for a traffic study to help determine if that's a good idea or not. We expect at their next meeting on May 13th, they'll act to hire a firm or to make a decision to hire the firm to do that. They did request that other items tied to the study keep going. So tonight are these zoning items. There will also, I expect, be an upcoming discussion about potential lease or sale of some of the city-owned properties discussed in that study. So even though the transportation part is on hold, even though the study is not formally the city's policy, we've still been asked to move forward with these things. So again, to emphasize, tonight's hearing all about zoning, not about the transportation recommendations. The city council's working through those. With the benefit of an extra 60 days to fully bake this, we've made a few updates to what's in the packet, what we've recommended to you. There's a red line in a link form if you'd like to look at that. Most of these aren't substantive. I mean, many of them just reflect that this may be adopted before the study is adopted. There were a few just clarifications. I want to bullet point quickly, which was, and we'll talk about these through the presentation, but there was some contradictory language on painted signs. We tried to clarify that painting brick for art or mural is okay. Painting signs in connection with that is okay. We're not trying to have painted signs as the cheapest form of sign, and we're not trying to have folks painting brick just a flat coat of paint, which usually isn't very attractive. The original draft prohibited drive-throughs. This new draft is more permissive in saying that they make sense where they already exist. In new developments, they should be limited. They should be further away from the street. Probably shouldn't be that many in the development. The design guidelines around parking lots and vehicular access have been restructured a little bit to be a bit more clear and to talk about underground, below-grade parking, and also to talk about parking on the side of buildings in a few constrained areas where there's not enough room to go all the way behind them. A few miscellaneous changes to the use table, and we'll talk about the owl house when we talk about rezoning. So that was jumping all over the place. Now we are running really kind of front to back in the ordinance. We're going to try to explain the big provisions quickly so I have a shared understanding of what we're talking about tonight. The first part of the presentation is all about the new TC district, which is proposed to span most of Kirchhoff Road. Your next item talks about where these rules apply. In the TC district, we start with bulk regulations. The district proposes a height minimum, a first time in the city, of 28 feet and a height maximum of 78 feet, which is equivalent to 5 stories or 4/1. The goal is to get development similar to some of the more recent condominium development you've seen, such as with Lexington Crossing or with the Riverwalk, where there's a first floor commercial uses, there's permitted residential above the first floor of a moderate density, and trying to discourage very low density, frankly very inefficient uses of some of the scarce land we have in the corridor. A big part of that is that residential above commercial is more houses, is more feet, is more customers, and helps support a higher intensity of business activity than we could without having more folks to patronize these businesses. It sets, again, a new tool in the city. It sets a maximum rather than a minimum front yard setback. So usually we say, hey, 50 feet, 100 feet, what have you, more is better. This is the reverse. We're telling people that we want properties, buildings built at the street line. We want them built close to the street. We have a pretty generous right-of-way on Kirchhoff Road as it is, and we want folks to be built up and engaging the sidewalk. We want entrances facing the sidewalk. We want walkability and active edges that make for an inviting town center. Again, really the point of these rules to create more of a, not a downtown per se, but much more of a downtown feel within the bounds of new development. There's very little in the way of setbacks or yards for that reason, but there is a buffer yard 10 feet to the side, 20 feet to the rear, abutting residential properties to help facilitate those transitions. The bottom table just reiterates what I said in a table form compared to C2, which is what is most of the district. Part of the TC regulations is actually avoiding a typical rule that tries to limit building bulk. Typically you would do coverage, which is just building divided by land, 2D. These are shown at the bottom. Impervious coverage, building and lot divided by land, 2D, or floor area ratio, which is building in 3D divided by land, right? This deviates a little bit from the Kirchhoff Road corridor study, which said, I believe that impervious might be the better tool, but if you do the math, and if you look at the sites, the impervious limit is so high as to not really serve a purpose. Nearby comparable districts don't apply these rules, and quite honestly, the city's landscape rules, MWRD's management requirements really are going to dictate the form. At best, adding another rule on top of that we think would end up being redundant in practice. I should mention in turning it over, so we have a whole cast here from city staff. We're going to be moving between myself, Deputy Director Alina, and Planner Savage on the presentation. We also have joining us Jake Side, who's our zoning consultant on this from the Kirchhoff Road Corridor Study. And I don't think he'll be talking any zoning, but we have Matt Holmes here as well from the City Attorney's Office.
All right. So continuing on to look at the permitted and special uses in the new TC zoning district, we did use the C2, which, as Glenn noted, is the predominant zoning currently along the district, and kind of use that as our basis and then made modifications from there. So in some ways, the things that we made less restrictive in this TC zoning district are things like multifamily and allowing residential above first floor commercial. More permissive, allowing things like dog parks, pet daycares, and pet stores. Also things like microbreweries, distilleries, and wineries, things that we heard from the community over and over again, maybe things that they want to encourage business-wise along the corridor. Things that we made more restrictive, things like auto and truck sales, as we talked about before, drive-throughs in a modified form, even from the original version, additional fueling stations, and then things like hotels and mini golf have been made special uses. So town center district design requirements. Design requirements were designed to provide simple, objective rules that relate directly to what we heard from the community feedback about what their desired built environment would look like. The goal was to create certainty rather than ambiguity and questions for developers. The review of these design standards are all handled administratively, meaning by staff. So that kind of makes the process a little bit quicker, a little cleaner, cheaper for a developer, unless there are other things like site plans that may naturally come before you as a PZC for review. This does not create an architectural design or review committee. Again, being administrative speeds up the process. We can go from application or discussion with a developer to approval quicker. This does create separate guidelines for commercial/mixed-use developments and residential developments. And finally, this would apply to all new construction or those projects that include significant exterior alterations or renovations to existing structures. TC commercial design. So some of these concepts that you see here highlighted in green. In a second, Rob will kind of go in a little bit more detail on, but I'm just going to give you some highlights here. So when it comes to minimum frontage, the new TC zoning district would require that 95% of the structure is adjacent to the lot line. This creates consistency and a sense of that downtown enclosure that you would feel when you've got buildings close to the street, a more pedestrian feel. As we discussed, parking should be located in the rear or, with some exceptions, next to the building or underground, depending on the circumstances of the site. The principal entrances should be along the street. New buildings should have a defined architectural base, middle, and top, and Rob will discuss this a little bit more. The facade should be articulated to provide some architectural interest. High-quality building materials should be used. Building details that enhance the streetscape and pedestrian environment are encouraged. Minimum window transparency is called for. And it encourages but does not require the use of alternative roof designs like green, white, and blue roofs. And then it does promote cross-access parking agreements to minimize driveways and allow an efficient use of the street frontage for commercial uses as opposed to driveways and parking.
Okay, so just to move into a bit more detail on some of these design requirements, I want to reiterate that these are really brought about in response to the community feedback from the visual preference surveys. They're really designed to basically set a bottom floor on the quality of development that we aim to see in the corridor. And we're not trying to necessarily restrict developers too much. These aren't super normative in terms of the kinds of architecture that we expect to see. It's really just about setting minimum design standards. So firstly, looking at defined base, middle, and top, it's really about setting these horizontal division lines across the facade of a building to give it that sense of scale and be really identifiable by its use. So you can see this in this example we have on the left here, really very little sense of scale in terms of its vertical separation. It's really difficult to tell what may be on the bottom, what may be on the top. Whereas this center image, you can very much see it's delineated from its retail ground floor and its separated uses on upper levels. Moving into articulation. So this is really about the way that exterior walls are detailed. The detailing of the exterior walls to prevent these very large, wide, flat, blank surfaces that are really not very good for engagement from a pedestrian kind of level. They're usually quite unsightly unless you do some serious interventions with murals or planting or the like. So this particular requirement is going to say that facades over 50 feet in width have to incorporate textural changes, material changes, vertical details, wall offsets, or expression lines. And it really is just to give it that breakup of aesthetic as you move through the space. So the next slide is going to give you a couple of examples of maybe different ways that buildings can articulate a facade. There's multiple different architectural styles here. Some may be more industrial rehabilitation kind of buildings, and some are more modern. But you can see that ultimately you've got this breakup of form as you move from the left to right of each of these structures. Next one. So next is going to be materials. We're showing some preference here for natural and durable materials. So ultimately, we do have quite a lot of permitted categories of materials in certain ratios, but ultimately we do want to see quite a lot of brick, stone, stucco, concrete, wood, non-reflective glass, and basically along Kirchhoff Road, 50% of the ground floor facade should be masonry. Now, we are placing some limits on some of the materials you see above here. So things like ephes, which is what you see on the left there, which is most of the facade of the shopping center that we have in town at the moment. And then maybe these other examples on the right where you've got a lot of very heavy use of aluminium cladding or various other kind of more synthetic materials. Now, these would be permitted, but maybe not for the entire facade as you see in these examples. And then moving into the next slide. So we do want to hopefully encourage a bit more of a robust and naturalistic kind of appeal to the facades of buildings. Again, without requiring any particular architectural style, we do like to see some creative masonry and wood and things like this, which we generally found that were preferenced in the individual surveys. Moving into fenestration and transparency. Fenestration obviously just being the kind of $2 word for windows, but what you see on the left here is something that's got a very high glaze, what's the word I'm looking for? A very low transparency, so it's got quite a heavy tint on there. It really disrupts the kind of the visual kind of transparency of that window, and it makes it seem quite cold and hard. What we tend to find that people prefer is windows that are quite transparent. They're really great for more passive shopping and communicating between those walls. So we're going to require 60% of the ground floor to be window, not exceeding 20% in tint, and we'll move on to the next one. But I'll give it back to Jordan.
All right, well, that snuck up on me a little bit there, Rob.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I think you're very prompt.
That is okay. So yeah, that's going to move us on to residential design guidelines. And as we're going to see, these are relatively similar to those commercial. First, with facade articulation, similar to the commercial design, it also discourages projecting balconies. So sometimes you may have seen on newer apartment buildings where it's basically a flat wall with, just a bunch of balconies that project out with really no additional architectural interest. So we're discouraging that. In multi-building developments, unified design would be required within the development, which seems common sense. As far as roofs are concerned, there's a focus on breaking up the roof line for visual interest with articulation and detailing. And in new townhome developments, we would allow a maximum of 6 dwelling units within one building. And then parking and vehicular access would be the same as commercial, with encouraged parking in the rear, and depending on the site, potentially parking adjacent or underground or making other provisions.
So parking requirements, these are very easy to explain in the TC district, and the proposal is to have none or really close to none. No parking minimum would apply to commercial uses, which would be an exception compared to the rest of the city. And this is not saying that there wouldn't be parking or that there wouldn't be adequate parking, but instead this would be letting the market determine, the necessary amount of parking. If you looked, for example, at the ATS item in some detail, especially the history, I think obviously that's not a commercial town center. That's a very different property, but I think it shows some of the difficulties there. When they came through for their zoning relief a few years ago, there is a fascinating letter that more or less says, we need 133 space or what have you, parking variation. I don't know if that's the right number. Sure sounded like they were at the end of the rope, and they said if they didn't get it, they were going to have to keep expanding in Ohio. That's some of the tricky situations we find ourselves in when it comes to parking minimums that aren't true about many of the other rules we administer. Land is valuable, especially being able to have places to park. People are generally good at that. The first people that suffer if there's not enough places to park might feel like customers, but that's really the businesses. We think allowing the market to guide more of that, especially in the constrained inventory of land we have in the Kirchhoff Road corridor, would be a wise decision. It's being made a lot in other parts of the country. For residential uses, you do need some type of parking minimum. We think that's appropriate. One parking space per dwelling is simple, it's effective, because many of these buildings will be built more vertically. There will always be some of parking made available to them, probably surface, potentially underground, depending on how dense it is. Again, spatially, we put parking lots behind buildings to improve the pedestrian environment. The revisions you have tonight really talk about putting them more to in some cases to the side on constrained sites. There's some shallow sites in the corridor where you wouldn't be able to have the depth to put them all the way in the back. Again, reducing this allows for more efficient use of land, more productive use of land. I don't want to overspeak, but I can't emphasize enough how many of the development applications we see probably struggle with parking at the boundaries, and we think this opens up a lot of potential in the corridor. I would emphasize too, and this is, again, one of the interesting quandaries of talking about study recommendations without the study being the policy of the city, but many of the sites, I would even say probably all the sites that the city is looking to redevelop, in the near term in that study, it's a lot more difficult with the parking requirements that we're applying in, for example, Algonquin Road or Gulf Road, or places where we don't have at least the residential transitions and the hope of a more walkable environment.
All right, this will move us to sign regulations. As with the others, we started with the C2 zoning rules as sort of our basis. Some of the changes they include allowing painted signs in conjunction with murals, in addition to allowing rooftop signs and wall signs that project from the roof line. This would allow more flexibility in design to promote personalized, custom, artistic, and unique signs in the district. So think about a sign like Comet in the district that's on the roof of the building. That's currently a legal non-conforming sign, and it's something that these rules, if adopted, we hope to encourage more unique, interesting signs like that. As part of this this process, we went to the Historical Society, or asked them to look through their archives to see if there were any pictures of historical signs in the community, and sort of the things we could find harken back to what is now called this Googie. So you see some of this sort of 50s retro feel, and so hoping that allowing a little bit more creativity could encourage some showpiece signs along the corridor, and I think that highlights our sign changes there.
2 slides to go. They're really text heavy. We're sorry, we're almost done. Some of these miscellaneous changes. The first, dollar stores, there's a good body of dialogue in the planning world that says, especially when you get an over concentration of dollar stores, they can make it harder for more productive retail uses of land to come in. This includes a restriction limiting dollar stores to 1 mile, 1 mile apart from each other. Within the corridor, existing dollar stores would be prohibited, so they would become non-conforming. You wouldn't be able to open a new one within a mile or not. If the existing one closed, it couldn't be replaced. But I did want to emphasize that this 1 mile limit applies citywide, within the district, and without. Multiple principal buildings is a feature in common zoning codes, or modern zoning codes, I should say. It allows multiple principal buildings for non-residential uses, so long as each building meets bulk rules. When they're presented for sale, the transfer tax stamp means you can't just divide them at will. You'd still have to subdivide them in some way, but it assists. We think it can assist practical, expedient development here. And it encourages common property ownership, which isn't a bad thing. Planned development process, there are a couple tweaks that would help, knowing that in this district, planned developments are a lot of our area. One is describing deviations, which is this next slide. It makes pre-application review optional for existing planned developments, so they could still choose to come before you for that extra step, that extra month. But in many cases, major changes may still not necessitate that step. And it clarifies how the city's been administering something, which is that you can still minor change or major change plan developments before 2020. Remember, Pacifica is that, Quick Trip is that. You could read the code to say that those developments have to start over. I don't think that was intended or practical, and we clarify that. And again, landscape requirements we'll bring back to you at a future meeting. A whole lot of text, and in some ways this is the This is the slide you can read with the most aspirations. This is intended to be the wish list. Plan developments, right? We are trying to achieve public benefits that aren't attainable through conventional zoning by providing flexibility. I would say, especially for a modern code, the city's code is somewhat unusual in that it doesn't try to define with more specificity what these benefits are, or really the mechanism by which we allow folks to, really not have to comply with the underlying zoning rules. What we say here in a new rule that would apply to all these changes in new developments is that we are looking for proportional public benefits to deviate from the underlying zoning. So if you're deviating a bit, you should provide a bit of benefit. If it's way out of whack, you should provide a lot of benefit. I think that's common sense. This list, again, is a wish list, right? You should provide. You're not expecting all of them. We're expecting them to be proportionate. But your creative development plan should provide community amenities, plazas, gardens, public art, seating areas. It should provide open spaces. It should enhance the natural environment, on Salt Creek, for example. It should create historic preservation, preserve our cultural resources. It should provide public infrastructure improvements above and beyond the norm, potentially. It should incorporate sustainable development, a mix of housing types not available elsewhere in the city. Accessible dwelling units that may go above and beyond the zoning code to provide units that are truly very accessible for folks with disabilities. Again, anytime we're dealing with planned developments, this is almost always up for this commission and the city council to weigh in on. This doesn't lock the city into saying yes or no to any particular thing, but it provides a lot more specificity and objectivity to what it is we're trying to achieve with this tool. With all that said, that is the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for the detailed and helpful presentation and the written materials. I thought they were really good. So appreciate the time that was put into that, just not only for tonight, but obviously throughout the process. Does anybody have any questions? Staff? On anything?
I think it's very thorough and it's
Or
good
comments?
guidance.
Yeah.
I think it's thorough and it's good guidance. At this point, I think that's really what we're looking for.
Very well
It was good.
presented,
Yeah.
lots of information.
Kelly, any comments, reaction?
I have quite a few. As far as staff goes, do you want to enlighten us and tell us how many private developers and private money is driving any of this? Or is this just wish list?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it wish list. There's a few ways to take your question. As far as short-term changes the city foresees, those are talked about in the corridor study under the opportunity sites. 2 of those are owned by the city. One of those is a private or a privately owned site. That particular individual has shared an objection to this proposed rezoning, which was shared with the group back in March. And we talked about then. I can reiterate it if you'd like, kind of the views expressed there. Part of what we are trying to do, knowing that it's a bit of Groundhog Day now that we're coming back to talking about a different economic climate. Again, frankly, coming back to talking about the Chicago Bears redeveloping Arlington Park and other, we think outside of that, good signs in our real estate market is really both trying to provide clear guidelines for a clear vision and clear guidelines for future development in this corridor, and frankly trying to invite in, trying to open new potential for development where it may not exist today. I think, some of these the opportunity sites laid out in the study are all relatively small. They're all relatively constrained. They have their own warts. When we look at, for example, the underutilization of the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center, that is a substantial opportunity, right? Of course, I wasn't here for this. I hope I'm not misrepresenting the history, but from what I can see, in the early 2000s, a pattern of development in this community which was not uncommon, right? Was kind of some older generation uses closed. The bowling alley is one. I think easier to focus on the results, which is the riverfront condominiums, Lexington Crossing, potentially Kirchhoff Crossing. I'm not as sure about the history of that one, but you saw retail uses close. You saw them be replaced by predominantly residential uses at, again, really this 4 to 7 story height. What we're trying to create through the TC district is a clearer set of rules. And I should say, backing up, all of that was in some ways, involved rezoning or wasn't commercial zoning, right? It was going off the beaten path. What we're trying to create through the town center district is clear expectations. Clear expectations based on what's already been developed and has worked successfully in the corridor, but that emphasizes the things we have heard consistently in this process and in past memory that the city thinks is very important, which is that new development should have a strong commercial component, that the city is not interested in exclusively residential development. And that, in many ways, in Rolling Meadows' own way, we're trying to achieve, a walkable town center, which may not look like Arlington Heights and may not look like what exists in other areas in the northwest suburbs, but that can really be a community amenity and a gathering space. It is, to conclude my thoughts, which I hope aren't too rambly, Commissioner, I hope I'm answering your question, but I'll just conclude by saying that, on the comment of wish list, we should be realistic. The city is making some new rules. I think some of them can be profitable for the property owners in the district. I think the lack of objection generally should tell you as much as the lack of support that's in the room, interestingly enough. But the city's not investing substantial resources in this, right? We're not talking about TIF. We're not talking about public dollars. To compare and contrast, down the road in Schaumburg, I think they're about to spend $14 million creating an entertainment district out of, bare dirt in the old motor oil complex. We're not talking about that, right? I mean, the expectations for change should be much more incremental and gradual and controlled, given the space we have and the level of public investment in it. But I think it's still a realistic and a practical blueprint for the future.
And, typically and historically, creating legal non-conforming properties has been kind of something we try to stay away from. And with this proposal, you're creating quite a few.
There's a few that come to mind. I don't know that there's a long list, but I mean, creating nonconformities is a part of any zoning change. There's a lot of protections in there for nonconformities. Places like, the churches aren't rendered nonconforming, but they can continue for, 100 years. That the Dollar Tree there in the shopping center, that can continue indefinitely. Probably the only thing that would disrupt it, short of them closing, is if the thing were to burn down, which we sure put a lot of effort into making sure that doesn't happen. It does close off certain possibilities within the district, but I think it opens others, and I think those are, in addition to kind of what the study talks about, just general economically, they're higher and better if the right circumstances align to realize them.
I still think the city has plenty of tools right now to, take care of any redevelopment that should come our way. And there's, from what I just heard from you, there's none sort of running towards the city and beating down your door.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So on the legal non-conforming, could you remind us, Mr. Cole, like when someone would be able to get the benefit of that versus not? Like if the property changes hands, but it's still the same business, same use?
Yeah,
Would
I'll,
that still be legal non-conforming, or would then the new owner be subject to the new zoning and have to comply?
yeah, so we can separate.
We've asked this several times over the months in various contexts, but.
No, it's always a good refresher. So structures and uses are treated a little differently. Structures often are more valuable, uses are more disruptive. But I'll just kind of go quickly through the list. I think it'll be intuitive. If you have a non-conforming structure, you can continue to repair it, you can maintain it, you can alter it, you can even enlarge it, just as long as enlarging it doesn't create new nonconformities or exaggerate existing nonconformities. You can't move it unless it's conforming.
What does it mean to be non-conforming, though? Are we talking?
So
like, we're not using the preferred design elements now.
So
in terms of
classic
facade, or does it not rise to that level?
Yeah, that is a special example, and we'll come back to.
Okay.
Classic example, nonconformity. You have a lot, you built a building in the middle, let's say it's 20 feet from the street. Later on, when we established or changed zoning, there's a 50-foot setback. Now the front half of your house, your building, is in the setback. That's a non-conforming structure, right? So you can't build an addition up within the setback, right? Your options are constrained. You can build one in the back, right? You can build one back to the rear yard line. You can still build it out in other directions, at least under the city's code, under many codes. You can still do plenty of other things to that house. You can still sell it. You can still buy it. It just restrains, the biggest thing, the part I'm about to read off is, if you are to, if it's damaged or destroyed, right, you can repair it. But if you're tearing it down, you don't have a right to recreate it, right? The code is engineered very gradually, without destroying the rights of anyone that's there today, to eliminate these nonconformities. To answer your question, Chairman, about the design guidelines, that would apply to new construction, substantial renovations. Nothing's rendered nonconforming by not meeting those when you put them into place today. Really, because the district's rules are so permissive, I mean, there's a lot of one-story, I'm losing my train of thought here. One-story, like strip mall type development, that would be rendered non-conforming. So the shopping center is a great example of that. You couldn't keep expanding onto the shopping center. There's not a lot of great places to expand to without starting new development for it. Again, you could continue to re-tenant that, to grant special use permits in there, to improve it for indefinitely.
Bless you.
But if there's a sale of the property from one person or entity to another,
Nothing interferes with that.
as long as there's no substantial changes to the nature of the building, or whatever the right term is in terms of material changes that would trigger.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, changes in ownership is a very special case. I'm aware of one case. Some city licenses don't transfer upon a change in ownership, so liquor, gaming cafes, potentially tobacco, I'd have to check. But zoning, generally, you do allow transfers. There are some rules in the city code about special use permits and ownership transfers, but not for nonconformities.
Okay.
And then if I might, just
Sure,
a moment
please.
interrupt. and say that, you know, legal nonconformings and changing zoning and creating other zoning districts when it could be detrimental to property values as well, for a shopping center, for a strip mall, for anything that is now deemed legal nonconforming and potentially in a different zoning district than was originally planned for.
I should, yeah. So, no disagreement with Commissioner Sheehan. I mean, that's true. If you're valuing the current value of the improvements, you may see them decline a bit. Sometimes there can be exceptions to title policies. Sometimes insurers can be odd about it, but again, this is routine. I will say the shopping center is probably a bad example in that is in a planned development. And so strictly speaking, that doesn't become non-conforming just by doing this. A lot of the surface area, and we can pull up a map if you like, of the district is within planned developments, and so it doesn't become non-conforming just by doing this, by changing underlying zoning. But, you know, I mean, the commissioner is right about that. There is counterbalance, right? I mean, there's a value of the improvements to the land, and there's the value of the land, right? My stepfather lives in a mobile home in Palm Springs. Notwithstanding how crazy California property values are, that mobile home, if he sold it, is probably worth $400,000. That's not a $400,000 mobile home. It has that value because whenever he moves out of it, that mobile home will be torn down and someone else will put something new in there. I think the same thing is true when you tell folks, you know, good news, you can build up to 6, 7 stories here, 5, 6, 5.5 stories here, by right, without a variance, without rezoning, without a planned development, without a contentious process. And if you do go through those processes, you have that guidance to point at. That's valuable, and I think that inflates the future value, especially of these larger sites.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, all this is a balancing. I think we're already well down this road, and I think, you know, none of this is without risk. But yeah, I think it's pretty well thought out and holistically aligned with everything else we're trying to do. It's just, yeah, it remains to be seen how this is going to really be implemented, and just leaves a lot of discretion for staff. And I guess that's my only reaction was, I think Mr. Savage, you said several times, this wasn't, the new code's not very prescriptive or whatever the term was. I mean, I'd want to be sensitive that we're not micromanaging business applicants, and that there's enough discretion for people to kind of do what they want within broad parameters. And, you know, if it's, so where does...
I'm going to pass this to Jacob.
Sure. Where does, like, the staff's discretion to allow something end, and where does our role begin in terms of, like, okay, now we're faced with approving a variance?
Yes.
Like, is there... I don't know if there's an easy way to answer that, but...
So essentially, so my name's Jake Side, by the way. I'm Sightline Planning.
Good to see you again.
It's good to be with you again. Essentially, with the new town center district, you know, we're trying to strike a balance here. We've used the term balance a few times in the last few moments, and it's the mix between a pedestrian-oriented area and an auto-oriented area. And you know, if you were to fix your car, you wouldn't have just one tool. So in this town center district, we've got a number of tools at our disposal, right? We're regulating use, we're regulating bulk, so that's setback and height and that sort of things. And then we're sprinkling in some very basic design guidelines. And with those design guidelines, it's essentially getting at that character that we've heard about through the public outreach process that people would like to see. You know, reinforcing the good aspects of Kirchhoff Road and trying to minimize some of the ones that people see more negatively. And so in terms of those design requirements, you know, bringing buildings up to the front of the property, up to the sidewalk to create that pedestrian atmosphere. And then some of the other design regulations, allowing some architectural flexibility. So if we see some things with some flair, you know, that would add to the corridor. You know, it's easy to approve those. But the design requirements are just kind of setting the floor, the minimums of what you might want to see.
So, yeah, I mean, like, when would we ever be faced with maybe hearing a variance for a design requirement? Like in terms of
Potentially, yeah.
materials, or hey, we want to use this other material?
Yeah, I mean, so
Or-
there's an emphasis on natural materials, right? Everyone loves brick and stone, you know, kind of evoking a traditional downtown, a traditional architecture. There's a world in which you could have an applicant here that says, I want to make a beautiful glass cube, and that's kind of minimized in some of the design requirements here. You know, you would have the discretion there to grant that variance or recommend that variance to City Council.
Okay.
Maybe even to add to that a bit, under the city's code, at least 3 roads that could take, right? One is it's within a planned development. You'll see that. You'll have the opportunity to weigh in on it. Even 1.5, you know, a special use permit, you'll see that. You'll have the chance to weigh in on it. And when we talk about the more discretionary parts, I mean, we've written these to try to be objective, but they are staff administered. If someone doesn't like that, if they don't think I know the difference between a cornice and a frieze, because I don't, they can appeal that, and there's an appeal process that comes to you that's talked about in the code. And then, of course, there is like a traditional variation process too. I think a variation would, you know, probably not be a well-suited tool here, but that would be an option if someone wanted to pursue it as well. They'd have the due process of doing that.
Okay. Got it. That's helpful. I just had a couple other just random questions. So the 28-foot height minimum, that means we're talking everything's 2-story, right? Is that pretty much what that,
Yep.
the practical effect of that?
The existing code defines a story as 14 feet, and we looked at that 2-story minimum to kind of promote the mixed-use environment, or you could have a two-story commercial building as well.
Sure, got it. And then the no parking minimum for commercial. So are we aware that have other similar districts that we're trying to emulate, if you will, like Arlington Heights or Palatine? Is that a fairly common feature of their code? Are we aware of that?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
A number of communities in the region. So before working at Sightline, I worked for the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. We worked with 284 municipalities in the Chicago region, and this is a very common trend now to not have parking requirements for a downtown area because they're usually well served by either on-street and off-street parking.
Sure, and so when we say we're gonna let market conditions dictate, I mean, that's basically if a new business owner wants to come into the district and, well, there's just not that much parking, they feel they need more, then they would just go elsewhere. But if they're comfortable with what's offered, and then working with the city in terms of any specific plans, that would just, the market would dictate, as you say, just kind of work it out.
Right, so
that plus whatever else we're facilitating in terms of street parking, or if we take one of the empty lots and we're gonna put a parking deck in it, right?
Right. So, you know, removing the minimums for commercial uses had those possible off and on-street parking from the city in mind.
Okay. But unlike Arlington Heights or Palatine, we don't have a kind of parking deck right now for overflow.
Right. Well, it's a chicken and egg
we're just
scenario.
kind of figure it out as we go, right? That's really what we're gonna have to do in terms of overall kind of parking load in the area.
I think that's true. I think you'll see, because there isn't a public supply, I think you'll just see folks mildly underparked by the city's rules at first. I don't think there will be big changes until there is a public parking supply. But you know, if you look elsewhere in the country, Chicago has kind of kept this to downtown districts. You can look elsewhere in the country to communities that have just decided to take this out completely in suburban-oriented areas as well as urban-oriented areas. So a public parking component isn't necessarily a prerequisite.
But your comment just a second ago about, well, until we do get that public parking element, if we ever do, some of the interest could be a bit muted. Did I hear that right?
Well, just in the sense that, a developer or a property manager is still probably going to keep for themselves, more, a pretty generous supply of parking for whoever their tenants will be in the future, right? You might see an owned and operated building will constrain that a bit. You might see that individual property managers may have a greater tolerance for parking sharing or for trying to fit in a use that's at the margins, if you would. Things that would require an extended process if the city's other parking ratio requirements applied here. I think you'd see flexibility, but you'd still have a 12-inch ruler at the end, at least in the short to medium term.
Got it. And then the planned development, the deviation concept. So that's basically kind of like a safety valve or a catch-all where planned development comes in and wants to do something that's just not in accordance with the letter of necessarily all the new zoning code. There would be some ability to approve that as kind of a one-off if there's sufficient benefits that would accrue. And then I guess the question is, who decides that? Is that staff or is that us or both?
Yeah, so in order, kind of the first generation plan development tool, right? The one that actually formed a bunch of the city, let's call it the 70s, 80s, thereabouts. There's this thing called a plan development. Here's a plan, you approve it. It might even be by resolution. There's very little process around it. Just build what's on the plan. The second generation, if you would, gets a bit more into, well, this is really like a pack. There's underlying zoning, and we still care about it, and that's still our measuring stick. And we're going to sort of trade, in a sense, public benefits for, how far afield we go from the underlying zoning. At least in Chicagoland and I'd say the Midwest too. There are future, there's more progressive folks out there. If you look at places like New York City, that's not us. I would say this is really bringing us more from it is odd to have a new tool that doesn't have this concept, but it doesn't, and so this is really bringing us more from the first generation to the second. Right now, you approve a plan development. It doesn't talk a whole lot about what you're supposed to get in exchange or what's supposed to be provided with that flexibility. This is defining it, and quite honestly, it's putting guardrails on it. In other communities, a developer has said, well, if I just write a check, that's a public benefit, right? That's not really it. We're looking for things that are intrinsic to the development and its form and what it brings.
Yeah. In a nutshell, the plan development process is a negotiated situation, and generally the municipality is kind of at a disadvantage, right? So since it's a negotiation, we're giving you some flexibility. We need community amenities in return. So that's how it goes.
And that
this
would
is
be
a common practice throughout the region.
Sure.
And to answer your question, this is something generally the plan commission hears as part of the standards and makes findings on, the city council adopts. The only time there would be a staff consideration of that is in those minor changes talked about in the code. We wouldn't do things that would diminish those benefits.
So we as a commission would have to be satisfied that there's enough benefits accruing as a result of this plan development with staff guidance and
I was
part of the application, right?
Yeah, and I would say I think this body does that already. I think
Mhm.
it's stated but not written. We talked about public benefits with the Pacifica development, with the Quick Trip development. Oftentimes this has been a straightforward public benefit, which has been repurposing difficult properties, necessitates that flexibility to avoid blight. Avoiding blight's a public benefit. Repurposing dilapidated buildings is a public benefit unto itself. But especially if we can see more progressive forms of development, higher value forms of development, there's more opportunities to create benefits other than just surviving, let's say.
Right. Okay. Anything thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, a few months ago, you kind of presented us with the EV implementation. Was that ever passed by the city, is to implement that? And would any of these new developments have to put the minimum in there for the EV charges?
Yeah, it was passed. It applies citywide. You know, the number of EV stalls is based on the number of parking spaces. So they build parking, they provide, you know, the facilities for that type of vehicle at a certain point. If they don't build parking, they wouldn't have to do that.
Okay, so if whoever comes in and builds whatever, whether it's commercial, whatever, and they add parking, they would have to supply X number of EV charging spaces for that area, correct?
Yeah, so for residential, there's a state law requirement that says they all have to be EV capable. So if
Okay.
you can't charge at home, you're probably not buying an EV. You have to run conduit and have a panel that can take it. Locally, the commercial requirement, I'm looking, perhaps Rob Savage remembers it better off the top of his head. If not, we can pull it up. You remember the ratio? Yeah.
Yeah, so 32 99 spaces is 2 spaces, with 3% beyond that.
Yeah.
Up to 8 spaces.
Yeah, so between 30 and 99, you just put in really one charging pedestal, 2 plugs. Above that, you get to 3% rounded. So very big parking lots, you may have up to 8 spaces in total.
Okay, I didn't know if it was passed or not. I just wanted to know that part of this this district, even though we approve it, that's also a condition of building whatever they decide to build.
Yeah.
As long as there's parking.
Yep, if you're building a parking lot, you'd have to do that. You'd be doing our landscaping rules, which have some buffering built into it. Bunch of other things that come along with building that type of facility.
And then if I remember correctly, as long as the parking lot doesn't go down to the gravel, they have to rip up everything, then they would have to put in the EV plugs, but not if they're just tarring it and restriping it and stuff like that, if I remember correctly.
I think after this group's recommendation, and I'll pull the ordinance up in a moment to check, I think it's just new businesses, new parking lots. I think you asked us to make it more conservative in when it applied.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Okay.
It does.
Good question.
I didn't remember.
Yeah.
I know what was talked about, but I didn't remember if that was also, I thought if it went down to the end of the concrete that they would have to put it in also, but I thought if they just tarred it and striped it, they were fine, but if they actually ripped it all up, I thought that was a requirement, but
That's how many of the city's other parking rules work. Again, I'm fairly sure you asked us to be more conservative
Okay.
on EV,
All right.
knowing it was a higher
right.
cost.
That sounds right. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Yeah. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to provide comment? Yes. Can you? Or
It's been a long day, I'm sorry.
yes.
I don't know how relative this
Na-
is.
name and
Roxanne
ad-
Summer.
Roxanne Summer. Address, please.
5550 Astor Lane,
And
Rolling
please,
Meadows.
thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I totally do.
Thank you, Ms. Summer.
Um,
Please proceed.
Like I said, I don't know, this is just a comment, observation, that, look, where is everybody? You know, it disappoints me, that's all. This is where it starts. This is where everything starts, planning and zoning, and nobody's here. Well, it's people. This is disappointing. You know, and then we get the yellers and screamers when the council is up. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's
Sorry.
No. Thank you for that. It's a good observation. I mean, while there is no one here tonight, so to speak, I mean, there's been plenty of engagement throughout the process, and we had certainly big crowds the prior two meetings with the study and the.
You guys have done an incredible
Yeah.
job, in my opinion. Incredible job getting it out there to us. And, I don't know.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not
We-
going to give up.
But it's a good sign no one's here objecting to all this, right? I mean, at
No,
least,
we need that.
well,
We need both sides of the.
I think they've already been all objected out, maybe.
Yeah.
I think they're still waiting to see if the road diet passes that. would
Right,
be-
they're,
Yeah. Well, this
They're,
is all part of it.
Well, I don't know.
True.
Will this still be implemented even though the road diet is turned down? Just out of curiosity.
That'll be up to the city council. So they asked us to
Okay.
bring this recommendation while they work on those items.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you very much for that.
all we can do tonight is try to take it to a vote to what we can, and it seems like we do have the ability to bring it to a vote, if my fellow commissioners agree. So, anything else from anybody? Can I have a motion then to close the public hearing in the matter?
I'll motion to close the public hearing for.
I would just clarify that in your motion, this is only for the text amendment.
Yes,
Correct, for the
that is
text
only
amendment.
for the text amendment, it's not for the way we did it separately. Motion to close the public hearing for the text amendment implementing the recommendations of the Kirchhoff Road study and establishing the TC Town Center District.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. 4 yeses and 0 nos. The motion carries, and the public hearing in this matter of the text amendment only is now closed. I see we've got a sample motion for recommendation to approve in the packet.
The text amendment.
The text amendment only
Right.
at this time. So can I have a motion for that recommendation?
I'll motion to approve the text amendment implementing the recommendation of the Kirchhoff Road Corridor Study and establishing the TC Town Center District.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Furstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Gherkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Sheehan,
No.
Chair Buckingham.
I'm a yes. I believe the standards have been met, and this is reasonably well thought out and on balance. It's a reasonable approach and in keeping with the rest of the study. So I'm a yes, and I look forward to many good things to come with this zoning code, assuming it is approved and everything moves forward. So with 3 yeses and 1 no, the motion for recommendation to approve is granted and will be forwarded to City Council for first reading at their next meeting, May 13th, 2025. So that matter of the text amendment, the pending matter number 1 is closed, and now on to pending matter number 2, which is the map amendment. That being a map amendment to change the zoning designation of certain properties along the Kirchhoff Road corridor to the new TC Town Center zoning district, City of Rolling Meadows applicant. So can I have a motion to reopen the public hearing in this matter of the map amendment?
I'll make a motion to open up the public hearing for the map amendment to change the zoning designation of certain properties along Kirchhoff Road corridor to the new TC Town Center zoning district.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. 4 yeses and 0 nos. The pending pending hearing is reopened and continued for further hearing this evening. So, city staff, I believe you're up.
Sure. One slide, no explanations, no Latin words.
Darn.
You make a new district, you put property into it. This is the drawing. We've had an interactive map of this area out on planrollingmeadows.com for the last few months. In short, it is all the developments, the churches, the commercial developments, the multifamily and so on, fronting Kirchhoff Road. There are a few parcels sort of on the boundary where we thought that residential zoning made more sense for them. The library is a great example. But in general, of those parcels that are likely to redevelop or that are commercial in nature or mixed use in nature, or even civic in nature, the proposal is to put those properties into the new district. As we discussed, many of these are within planned developments, so between nonconformities and the existing planned developments, it's just trying to affect the future trajectory. We think it's a logical boundary based on the surroundings. The only interesting note here, the first time around we omitted this small property in error. This is the what we call the Owl House there at the edge of the City Hall campus. A while ago, the city bought that and used it. There was perhaps a nuisance concern about sirens and things, and uses it just for storage. Unless the City Hall campus was redeveloped, which we think is pretty unlikely, that property wouldn't be redeveloped. The city's going through a number of use studies right now, and it's very possible that an outcome of that may be to turn that back over to single-family residential use, in which case it wouldn't make any sense for that to be in this district. So at least at this time, we're recommending leaving it out. That was the only interesting wrinkle here that I would say. Again, we think overall it's a jaggedy boundary, but it follows a logical progression. We did hear loud and clear from the planning process to leave out the single-family homes along the frontage, and that this does that, as well as our parks are also left in a residential zoning where they've typically been. That small parcel there is part of the shopping center plan development and is also partially city-owned where the community gardens are. So happy to answer any questions about this.
What about the newer townhomes across from the church? Those are excluded, right? Those are not in the district.
Those are drawn as excluded. This was another judgment call one. Our thought here, and if there was a desire to do this, we could bring it back in the future. Our thought here was just that it's just redeveloped. It will have no redevelopment pressure for the foreseeable future. It loads and interacts with the streets further behind it. And it doesn't really interact as much with what's in front of it, right? There's a road that runs through it, and that's it. If you compare the development to the west, there is a lot of interacting easements and covenants and access and parking spaces and a lot of moving parts where applying more uniform zoning there, we think will help, even if it goes slightly further deeper than just the Kirchhoff Road frontage. That's really, with the way the property lines are laid out, that's just Trinity Lutheran Church, but Trinity has a number of rights too, and has a number of obligations to those surrounding property owners there. That same situation isn't true there with the townhomes. They just enter into the stormwater management between the two lots.
But the upshot is staff did consider whether to include or exclude, and that was the judgment that you guys made for those reasons. Basically, it was just redeveloped. It's probably the biggest one, right?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. But ultimately, many of these condominium buildings are less likely to redevelop. But if there was, if there were smaller changes, the zoning, this town center zoning may make more sense there. The townhouses, again, aren't quite condominium buildings. They're not multifamily. In some cases, they don't meet, for example, these design guidelines. And it would just, again, those don't apply until you're doing major work, but it's just there are extra complexities there that aren't present in the rest of the corridor.
Okay. Did we get any objections for this piece of the process in terms of the map amendment?
None specific
Either
to the
in
map
writing
amendment.
or anything formal or?
I think I'm being accurate in saying that, you know, really the public interest has been directed to the transportation recommendations. There was, again, the one objection to the district raised by the owner of those 2 lots there in front of the townhomes. You should read that. Certainly, you should consider that in making your recommendation on the map amendment as well as the text amendment.
That was already in the packet from a prior meeting, correct?
Yeah, that was shared with the Plan Commission in March, and we added it. It was at the dais, I believe, in March. We added it to the packet after the fact as well,
Okay.
so it's out there.
But other than that, that's pretty much been it in terms of.
I think that's been it. Yeah.
Okay.
You remember some of the questions in March were, what was this do to the churches?
Right,
Doesn't do anything.
sure.
You know, there are obviously questions in there directed to the study and this, but nothing I would call objections.
Okay.
I remembered initially that that was supposed to be 3 lots, so now it's just 2, correct? The ones in front of the district, in front of the townhomes there. If I remember correctly, it was initially 3 lots that were there, correct?
So so both are true, I suppose. There is, so the northwest corner, the old Taco Bell wasn't part of that redevelopment.
Correct.
So there are 3 lots in front. But the final approved plan for that development just has 2 lots.
Okay.
That's been the plan since the townhomes were physically built.
Okay.
I know it went through a number of different concepts before that.
Because it was initially 3
yeah.
when the townhomes went up, and I just wanted to make sure that it's now 2.
Yeah, it is 2 right now. You can see.
Okay, that's.
Might be hard to see, but there's a line right about the middle.
Because I remember when we saw the initial plan, it was 3 lots that we were going to get, but if they modified it down to 2, that's fine. I just didn't know that.
Questions, comments on this piece?
Nope.
Okay, I think it makes sense. Seems fairly non-controversial, this piece of it. Okay, anybody from the public wish to provide comment on this piece? Okay. Yes. Do you want to come forward? Yes.
Thank you.
State your name,
Berta
first and
Lopez
last.
Taylor.
Sorry?
Berta Lopez Taylor. Should I spell it?
Please.
Lopez Taylor, Lopez hyphen Taylor, Taylor.
And address?
2924 Cardinal Drive, Rolling Meadows.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Real quick question, as far as residential was concerned, and I know I asked this question when we first started, as far as like the whole Kirchhoff thing, but residential area, I live right across the street, that would not be affected as far as any rezoning, correct? Because my house butts up to the sidewalk that goes up along Kirchhoff Road.
If I may, Mr.
Please.
Chairman. Happy to pull up the map real quick, but yeah, there's no single-family houses in the boundary.
Okay,
And we can show you your house precisely if you like.
perfect, yes.
See if I can do this live. Always the test.
You can do it, Glenn.
Can I use a computer? Thankfully, we at least picked a very simple URL to remember. Best part of the project. What was that address again, miss?
2924 Cardinal.
There you go.
No, you're just showing off, Glenn.
So where's her house? Oh, at
It's the
dot.
yellow dot right there in the middle.
Got it.
Warren Street, yeah, directly across the street. Okay,
Does that make sense, ma'am?
yes.
Does that, you understand then that none of the new zoning codes that, if they were approved, will affect your property directly.
Good, good. Well, because the street, mind you, Kirchhoff, my fence goes to the sidewalk of it, so being that anything might change to Kirchhoff. I know I also, the back half of my, shows that little corner that you guys have, that the city is owner to, which is kind of twisted right now, right here, I think, behind us. Okay. You guys would be developing something or wanting to develop something where the kitty corner from the police station here, again, would not affect me directly across the street. So, yes, perfect. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming. Great. Anybody else? Okay. Can I then have a motion to close the public hearing in this matter of the map amendment?
I'll motion to close the public hearing for the map amendment to change the zoning designation of the certain properties along Kirchhoff Road corridor to the new TC district, Town Center zoning district.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion carries, and the public hearing in the matter of the text amendment, or the map amendment rather, is now closed. There's a sample motion for recommendation to approve in the packet. Can I have a motion for that recommendation to approve?
I'll make the motion. Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented for the map amendment to change the zoning designation of certain properties along Kirchhoff Road corridor to the new TC Town Center zoning district, I move that the Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of fact provided by the petitioner and attached to hereto as Exhibit 1, and recommend that the City Council approve the zoning map amendment set forth in the draft ordinance.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Furstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Gherkin.
Yes.
Commissioner Sheehan.
No.
Chair Buckingham.
I'm a yes for the reasons previously stated on the prior matter on the text amendment. So with 3 yeses and 1 no, the motion for recommendation to approve is granted and will be forwarded to City Council for first reading May 13th. That concludes the pending matter number 2. So thank you, ma'am. You're welcome to stay longer if you like, but that matter's now closed. Now on staff to miscellaneous items on the agenda. Are there any discussion items or reports for us tonight?
Yeah, very limited report this evening. We don't have any business right now on the Commission's June agenda, so we'll give it till the end of the week to be sure, but I expect we'll cancel your June meeting. Again, we'll publish notice of that as required by law. We'll email it to you as well. I would expect we will have business for your July meeting from what I'm aware of right now. Again, we'll confirm that. At whatever point the Commission meets again, we'll try to tuck in that landscape item if the length of the agenda allows. I am sure, of course, that you will use all of that extra free time to read the CMAP local housing profile for April 2025. CMAP publishes these for each of its, how many?
284.
284 municipalities within the metropolitan region. Planner Savage has very graciously summarized some of those in those bullet points. A useful document to us as staff, and certainly useful in helping keep track of what's changing in our local and our regional housing markets, so we wanted to share that with you as an ongoing item of interest.
So, question on that, what does the city do with this report? Is there anything formal that it uses it to rely on?
It's good statistical information when you need those uses. There's no specific application to it, but when we talk about affordable housing or cost burdens or things like that. This is a good synthesis of the best data that's available.
Just a question, how is the Pacific development going?
They are off and running. If you drive by, you'll see they've a lot of action going on. They've got the new water main going in. I think they've got their sewer connections done. Most of the south-facing facade is in some state of partial demolition at this point. They're actually building a lot of the structure on the inside, including the new facade, and then they'll tear down the outside wall, so it's going to change a whole lot real quickly. But
The parking lot's
it's a
going to
treat.
be redone in that too, correct?
Yep, we are starting to plan for that now because it will be a bit disruptive to that shopping center. Looking about 30 days out for them to do it. They're looking at doing it in two
And
halves.
just out of curiosity, the business that went into the old eclectic
Agit
place.
Black.
Yeah. I never see anybody there. Is it actually opening up? I'm just curious.
It is open. I shared the same impression, Commissioner.
Okay.
I think they run a very late night business.
Oh, so it's like what, like 7, 8 o'clock, I'm guessing, at night, I'm guessing?
Haven't been by that late.
Okay, I was just curious because I said, man, I never see anybody here because I thought they would be open more for longer, but okay.
Maybe tonight.
I'm just curious.
The most I've seen is maybe 10 cars.
Yeah, I've seen some cars there, but it's pretty hit or miss.
Okay. All right. I'm
You
just
should go there
curious.
sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Post-meeting field trip.
Sure, not a problem.
Who's in? Okay, anything else? Guys, was there anything else on the CMAP report?
No, sir.
Anything else that kind of jumped out at you guys there? I mean, when I looked at it, it seemed pretty straightforward and nothing was really a surprise.
No, I think this is all extensions of recent trends. I mean, the only big blip recently would be the townhouse development coming online. I'd have to go back a few years to compare that. I think probably would be more interesting, which we don't have here, but if you were to look at some of our surrounding communities, I think we do see, our single family stock is probably a bit more accessible. I'd be curious how that stacks up both from a value and an affordability standpoint, but we haven't tried to compare that tonight.
Got it. Do you have access to the other jurisdictions' reports?
All of them are online on the CMAP website.
Okay. We'll get right on
So what is that, cmap.com or something like that?
cmap.illinois.gov. Yeah.
Right.
They're official.
So
We're
is it
not.
just the letter C or is it spelled out?
CMAP.
cmap.illinois.gov.
.gov. If you have any trouble, you're welcome to shoot us a note.
No, I'll figure it out. Because I would be interested in comparing it to Arlington Heights and Schaumburg. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. Let us know what you find.
I will do that. I was surprised at the number of empty homes in Rolling Meadows. That was the biggest figure that surprised me.
I didn't see that one.
It's 572 out of 9,000 homes.
I confess I shouldn't speak for the group. Mr. Savage spent a bit more time with this document.
Yeah, sorry, I just got back. What's the question?
Where did you go?
Interesting things from the CMAP housing profile.
Yeah, in comparison, I mean, occupancy is vacancies at about 5%, which is kind of normal vacancy. Greater Chicago, from memory, is around 8%, and of course that's factoring in, fairly disinvested communities and South Side, West Side, places like that. So, they change the averages somewhat. Rolling Meadows, again, fairly high occupancy by comparison to a lot of communities. Where we have seen some shift is, very low income owners experiencing an increased rent burden, cost burden generally for cost of living. I think that's fairly well documented across most cities, and it's, arguably just increasing over time. So something to be mindful of in how we plan for that. Yeah.
Got
if
it.
there's any other questions directly, I'm happy to answer.
No, I was just curious because I know there are empty homes around Rolling Meadows because I've seen them, but that figure was just kind of amazing that it was that high. But of course, I guess that maybe a lot of people have moved out and the house is up for sale and it just hasn't sold yet. So
Yeah, and
that could be very misleading.
Yeah, it's a snapshot, and maybe Jay could speak to how they do that data collection a little more thoroughly. I'm not sure. Not sure what he did at CMAP, actually. Not that. Okay. But, you know, like, that could be factoring in, you know, rentals that are
Right.
on 12-month contract and then
Right.
come and go. So, you know, there's going to be some kind of natural vacancy rate that does allow for that kind of
Right.
mobility between homes. And
Right.
so people come in and move out. Maybe people move out and upgrade to
Right.
larger homes or something like that. So
Okay.
you know,
It was
it's
it was just a figure that kind of jumped out at me. I know of probably about 10.
It can give you a picture of 500 homes sitting there vacant and becoming dilapidated with
Right.
lawns 2 feet high, and we're not really seeing that so much.
And thank you for the city, because we had one down the street that was like that for probably 10 or 15 years, where the grass would get extremely high, and had to contact the city multiple times to make sure that the bank would come there and do the lawn. Finally, it got renovated and somebody sold it, and it actually is being lived in and maintained now, which is, you know, 5 times better than it was 4 or 5 years ago. But that was empty for at least 15 years, and the grass would grow to 3 to 4 inches before somebody would actually come and cut it. And I had to contact the city multiple times, and they worked to get that more consistent, which I appreciate, because that's right on a main road, right on the corner there.
Well, thanks for the summary, Mr. Savage. It's very interesting. Anything else from staff? Now we're on to the final agenda item, public comment period. This is the time when members of the public may address the commission regarding any topic within the commission's purview that's not elsewhere on the agenda. Anybody?
Mine that I think I spoke my
Okay.
mind.
You sure? Okay. But now's the time, if not, but hearing none, I believe we can now move to adjourn the meeting. So can I have a motion to approve the adjournment of tonight's meeting?
I'll motion to approve the motion of the Planning and Commission meeting to be adjourned on May 6th, 2025 at 9:56 p.m.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein by voice vote. All in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. 4 yeses and 0 noes. The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned as of 9:57 p.m. The Commission's next meeting will be June 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. unless it's canceled, and then it'll be kicked over to the July regular meeting. And that's it. Thank you, everyone, and good night.